Welcome as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston and I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. Renee will be joining us shortly. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. And today we focus on blessers and blessies. So in the question of the day, we're asking you, what is your impression of this latest phenomenon of blessers and blessies? I'd like to get your thoughts on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. Let us know what's on your mind. But first, let's find out what's happening in the news headlines with Renee.
The ANC's battle plan to retain control of most of the country's municipalities will come under scrutiny today when the party finalises its candidates list for the August 3rd local elections. The situation remains tense in Lebode in Eastern Cape after a taxi driver was gunned down, allegedly in taxi-related violence. And the bail application of Christopher Panayiotou will continue in the Port Elizabeth Magistrates Court today. Now it's over to Elvis, who'll give us the latest on the sports headlines. Very good morning to you.
Thank you, Renee. Let's take a look at those sports news. And of course, a very important story in sports. Tributes are pouring in for the former South African Football Association Technical Committee member and Bafana Bafana coach, previous Bafana Bafana coach, Ted Dumitru. Then, we'll also take a look at the 2015-2016 Nedbank Cup final that's taking place at the Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane tomorrow. And South Africa's most successful Super Rugby franchise this season, the Lions, are quietly confident ahead of their Super Rugby clash against the Bulls on Saturday. Now, those are all your sporting highlights that will be coming up a little bit later in the program in the second hour, so stay tuned. But now, it's back to Renee with your news.
Thank you very much, Elvis. The ANC's battle plan to retain control of most of the country's municipalities will come under scrutiny today when the party finalises its candidates list for August the 3rd local elections. Party leaders will meet in Irene, north of Pretoria, to select mayor and councillor candidates for the poll. The ANC is facing what is expected to be a fierce electoral battle with opposition, Democratic Alliance and EFF, eyeing to take control of metro councils run by the ANC. The ruling party has been running against time to finalise the candidate list. Factual battles have led to violent clashes, even political killings, as members squabble over who should make it to the final list. The party has recommended 3 names to communities, leaving it to them for final decision. It will be for the first time that the ANC announces mayoral candidates for metros and district municipalities ahead of elections. The extended National Executive Committee meeting is expected to receive the reports on the much-talked-about state capture. The expropriation bill is on its way to President Jacob Zuma for his signature. It allows the expropriation of property for compensation for public purposes. Various political parties expressed their views on the bill.
The final plenary of the National Assembly before the election recess. 2 particularly important orders, the new House rules and the expropriation bill.
The bill seeks to align the Expropriation Act of 1975 with the Constitution and to provide a common framework to guide the processes and procedures for the expropriation of property by organs of state.
But the DA, UDM, ACDP and FF Plus don't trust the process.
Expropriation without reasonable legal protection against abuse is no longer just a threat to those in the agricultural sector, but also to those churches, banks, commercial businesses, food producers, miners and ordinary people with no guarantee of compensation. We believe the expropriation bill creates insecurity.
Moving on to the new rule book, it's been in the making since 2012, but the last 2 years brought on a whole new challenge.
Never in my life, and certainly as my history as a Member of Parliament, did I ever think that we would be writing rules for a violent Parliament. And I think we can all agree that the violence that has taken over our parliament not only degrades what we stand for, but certainly the hard-won democracy that we all enjoy today.
An effort by the DA to amend the rules was defeated and the rule book was subsequently adopted. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
The situation remains tense at Lebode in the Eastern Cape after a taxi driver was gunned down, allegedly in taxi-related violence. The latest death brings the total to 5, but killed between Mthatha and Lebode in the past 3 weeks. One of the taxi associations has resorted to armed escorts on the disputed route.
Another victim of taxi violence. The two associations have been feuding over the R61 road between Mthatha and Lebode for the past 5 months. The Mthatha Taxi Owners Association is now hiring private security guards to escort its members.
They promised us, in fact, that they're going to deploy a flying squad unit together with public order, that is BOBS, and the police from the Lebode to patrol the R61. It surprises me now, as you can see. We've been here for 3 hours. There was not even a single unit that was here.
Say this is unacceptable.
We'll never allow the force that is going around carrying big firearms, threatening people that are, threatening passengers, threatening people in our country. We can't allow that.
Hawkers are also affected by the taxi rivalry. 6 people have been arrested in connection with 3 of the 5 murders. Police say they are following strong leads to make more arrests. Simkita Manana, SABC News, Lebode.
The bail application of Christopher Panayiotou will continue in the Port Elizabeth Magistrates Court today. He has been charged with planning his wife's murder. Yesterday, the magistrate adjourned the court after the state read out affidavits of investigating officers Kana Swanepoel. His affidavits contain statements from state witnesses Lutando Sioni and Donovan Vosloo. They reveal how Panayiotou persuaded his employer Sioni to be part of the plot to kill his wife. Vosloo's statement, meanwhile, revealed that he wiped data from the phones of the accused. Jade's post-mortem revealed wounds on her fingers and head. The state maintains that it still has a strong case. The defense will reply today. The SABC says it will no longer broadcast footage of people burning or destroying public property due to protests in any of its new bulletins. The SABC has also appealed to other broadcasters and the print media not to cover the violent protests that are on the rise and destroying public institutions. The public broadcaster says it's not going to provide publicity to such actions, which it describes as destructive and regressive. In a statement, SABC COO Claudie Motsoeneng says the SABC has a mandate to educate citizens and therefore apologies for that technical error. We will be handing over to Elvis.
Thank you, Renee. And of course, there's a question that we're posing to you today. It's going to be on your screen shortly. And we're talking about the phenomenon of blessers and blessies. And we would like to get your impression of this latest phenomenon of the blesser and the blessee. And what do you make of that? Well, the Blesser Finder's social media page has got people talking as its membership is rapidly growing. That page is a place where women, mostly young women, are matched with rich benefactors in exchange for sex. And the page, categorized as a dating site, currently has 10,000 members, and its numbers are increasing daily. Now, SABC's Current Affairs sat down with one of the website founders who didn't want his face to be shown and asked to be called by the name De Chejo. The reporter asked him how the page was created.
A blesser, according to how we define it, because also you must understand when we first started the page, we had no idea what a blesser was. We would have gone with the conventional belief of what a blesser is, which again is wrong. But using now the data that we have, because we've more than maybe 20,000 chats with different people to define this. A blesser is anyone who can bless you with their time, somebody who can bless you with their resources, their beauty, their companionship, So it's not limited to money.
What is the response that you're getting from your users?
The response has been very phenomenal. I mean, we were not planning for this. We didn't think that it would get this far. For us, it was purely a social experiment, and we had hoped it would end there. But now, when you're now sitting on, I think we were looking yesterday with the figures, our page here has been viewed in South Africa alone by more than 700,000 people. So, besides that, then we're still sitting on requests which are backdated a week ago that we're trying to respond to, and we're running behind.
Do you see that a lot of people are using your services? And what kind of people are using your services?
I would probably say everybody is using our services. The only problem is that I don't even know if you're using it, and you won't know if I'm using it, because we have a very high degree of anonymity. You know, it's a situation that we believe that what we found from this whole thing is that our evolved sexuality as human beings is in direct conflict with many aspects of modern day society. In other words, what we do feel and what we are told we should feel, it's creating a big contradiction to that. Simply put, they are not only the gays and the lesbians that must come out, but a lot of us are in closets, and we all must come out, and our page provides for that platform. All the requests we've had, and I can tell you, let's call it thumbsuck 30,000 requests, maybe not more than 10, has there been a mention of the word sex? You know, I think what happens is, a lot of people are married. I mean, if you also go to our page, you see that they say they are married, they are not happy. But because society has taught us that you can't leave your man and go back to your family and say, I don't want to be married anymore. Because we live in a society where bazothina abantu. So because of that, a lot of people are held back on the things that they want to do. But in this scenario, always saying people are adults. So if somebody else wants to be with a man, because the roots of marriage itself is economics, not love. You know, when you look back at evolutionary history, men have always listed, they've always listed women's reproductive by providing meat, shelter, status, and all that.
Then are you perhaps a subscriber to the service of the Blesser and the Blessie? That's the website. And as you heard the man's argument about why they've put up this website, there's a need. But meanwhile, the Health Minister, Aaron Motsoaledi, announced a new campaign to prevent schoolgirls from falling prey to sugar daddies or blessers earlier this month. Now, the campaign is created to reduce teenage pregnancies. The 3 billion rand project is funded by foreign donors and other government departments. Minister Motsoaledi says the 3-year campaign will target girls between the ages of 15 and 24 and will start next month, that's in June. Now, to tell us about this campaign, we are joined in studio by the Honourable Minister. Very good morning to you, Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, and welcome.
Morning, Elvis, and morning to the viewers out there.
First and foremostly, before we reflect on what we're going to discuss about this campaign, what do you make of a particular website like this one, Blesser Finder, that talks to young girls to come on board and be blessed?
It's nauseating. It's absolutely nauseating. And you can see, if a person is proud of what they are doing, they won't hide. He won't refuse to come out in the public. It means he's doing something in the dark which is very evil, and he knows it. That's why I'm saying it's nauseating.
Now, the campaign that you have decided to launch, it's a 3-year campaign. It's a very long campaign. It focuses on girls between the ages of 15 and 24. Why was there a need for this particular campaign?
Well, firstly, Elvis, I was very disappointed, very, very disappointed when I announced the campaign on the 10th of May in my budget speech. It was taken to be about this very ugly concept of blessers. That campaign is much bigger than that. It's huge. It's an all-government, all-society campaign to try and deal with young girls between the ages of 15 and 24. It was not just out of the blue that we did it. Studies have shown that in 14 southern and eastern African countries, the rate of infection in that age group, 15 to 24-year-old girls, is 5,000 new HIV infections per week. And unfortunately, Elvis, half of those are happening in South Africa. So we need to do something about it. And we decided to launch this all-government, all-society campaign, where we're doing 5 things, by the way. And I want to emphasize that. because the media tend to have emphasized only the fifth one. There are 5 things. Firstly, reduce the rate of infection in that age group. Do everything possible to reduce that. Secondly, the rate of infection is also attended to by pregnancy, teenage pregnancy and abortion. Reduce that. Thirdly, there are issues of gender violence here. It's not that those young girls, many of them are free to do what they do. They are subjected to some form of gender violence and coercion and all that. We want to reduce that, you know. Fourthly, make sure that the young girls stay at school for as long as possible, because studies have also shown that if young girls stay at school for as long as possible, at least up to matric, these incidences reduces. And lastly, only lastly, try to link them to economic opportunities to reduce their reliance to ever believe they can give them money, whether you call them sugar daddies or blessers, terms which I hate very much. Unfortunately, we know that such evils do exist. But can we link them to some economic opportunities, technical knowledge, etc.? I mean, skills acquiring so that they become women in their own right and less dependent on anybody.
So how will that be linked to these economic opportunities that you're talking about, Minister, the campaign itself?
Maybe you need to understand the total campaign, because if I take it in piecemeal, you won't understand.
Yes, yes.
Firstly, we have got statistics for each and every district in South Africa. There are 52 districts, and each and every municipality. Statistics of HIV/AIDS prevalence, in that we do have it. So we take that statistics, we target the highest prevalence districts, we go to them. Because we are looking for 15 to 24-year-olds, I'm sure you'll agree with me that 80 to 90% of them are at school, that age group. Then we go to the schools in that area. And we target specifically schools where the teenage pregnancy is the highest. We know that that's where the problem is. If there's a high rate of teenage pregnancy, then it will be attended by many other things, including abortions, infections, school dropout, and all these evil people called blessers will be focusing at such a school. We go there. And we profile the school girls in that age group. We profile them and their families. Then what we do is link them to services. For instance, they might not know that such services exist. Depending on the profile, we'll say, this young girl needs PEP. That is post-exposure prophylaxis. Having been violated against her wishes, we need to protect her. Maybe we must tell her about PEP. This young girl may need PrEP. Pre-exposure prophylaxis. She's not yet HIV positive, but the chances are very high that she's going to be. We can put her on what is called pre-exposure prophylaxis, which protects vulnerable people to not become HIV positive in the long run.
It's all about prevention better than cure.
Yeah, exactly. Then contraception. We can offer them contraception because we realize that they are vulnerable. Then we go to the local clinic to find if the clinic, our own clinic in health now, is it adolescent friendly, or are the nurses having an attitude towards adolescents? What I mean by attitude is sometimes they say the nurses believe they are helping morally, when actually in other areas it's not helpful. When I say they think they are helping morally, for instance, they look at the young girl and say, but you're still too young. You're looking for condoms and contraception. Does your mother know about this? Then they say, go and call your mother. We want to know if she agrees. Morally, it might look good, but practically, it's destroying that young girl because it's exposing her. She's coming because she's calling for help. So when you send her away on moral grounds, you're actually destroying her. So we're going to check all those things. And then we go to the parents. Let's look at the parents of this child. How skilled are they in their parenting? Can we link them to some parenthood groups who will mentor them in parenthood and tell them what to do, because maybe they are at their loss on what exactly to do. Then when we finish that, we go to the men. All these things are happening because there are men in that area. Then that we go to the men. You know, what is the profile of those men? We have learned from experience that men do not actually know their HIV status. It's women mostly who do. And men believe these women are their mirrors, you know. They don't go. So we'll offer them HIV counseling and testing, and those who are positive, will put them on treatment immediately, knowing very well that if they are on treatment, whatever activities they are involved in, they won't be, what you call it, the virus. They won't be propagated. The virus won't be propagated in that community.
Because that was the question I was going to pose to you.
Yes.
Because the campaign focused on young girls, but it will then include young males as well. Is that what
the
you are
campaign
saying?
says it's a campaign focusing on girls and young women between the ages of 15 and 24, and the men who impregnate and infect them. That's the total description of the campaign.
Yeah, because some
the men who infect, what you call them. We can't leave them behind. We know they're there.
Yeah, because some would argue that the young males, although the young girls might have sugar daddies and blessers, the young males might have sugar mamas. And you need to prevent that as well.
we really target on them. We offer them HIV counseling and testing. We will offer them medical male circumcision, free medical male circumcision. We'll offer to put them on ARVs if they are positive. If some of them have got some activities which we make them vulnerable, we'll also put them on pre-exposure prophylaxis. So that's why I'm saying it's a whole government, whole society campaign.
When is it starting, Minister, exactly, and what is it going to be called, and how are you going to launch it?
We're going to choose the June month, because it's the youth month, because this is for young people, which means it will be launched next month. We'll give all the details. We're going to have a National Health Council next week, Friday, where all the MECs, HOD, South African Military Health Council, SALCA, will all be represented. That structure is called the National Health Council. It's the highest decision-making body in health, except cabinet.
Yes.
It will make all these strategies and decisions, when to launch, where, and all that. Then we'll announce them.
So that means we have still a lot to talk about, Minister.
Yes, we have got a lot to talk about, but we just want to know that this is a huge campaign. We believe, Elvis, when you look at the National Development Plan, it's Vision 2030. It said by 2030, the generation of under 20 must be HIV/AIDS free.
Yes.
We're not going to wait for 2030. We're starting now so that we work over the whole 14 years, so that in 14 years' time, we can proudly say, at long last, we are HIV/AIDS free. And this is part of the campaigns that will be
And
doing.
will that also indicate that we won't have any blessers at that point in time?
We're hoping so, because it's a very ugly phenomenon. I'm really, it's disgusting to hear that there are human beings who can even promote something like that. That's why the gentleman who showed there running the website is hiding. Why hide from society if you are doing something very helpful to them?
Minister, I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Joining us
Thank
here.
you. Thank you.
That was the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, joining us here in studio. And of course, we're talking about that phenomenon of the blesser and the blessees. I'd like to get your thoughts on the website, on the Facebook page, as well as on the Twitter handle. But let's take a look at what is happening on the social media pages. And we start off with Ted Dumitru. Hashtag there, Ted Dumitru. Tributes are pouring in for the former South African Football Association Technical Committee member, as well as former Bafana Bafana coach, Ted Dumitru. These images of Dumitru came from the Sports Minister, Fikile Mbalula. There you can see him. Rest in peace, Ted Dumitru. 1939 he was born. 2016 he died. And then the front runner for the U.S. presidential election. Let's move on to the U.S., where the front runner Donald Trump has secured enough delegates to grab the Republican nomination. Let's take a look at that picture, and there we have Barack Obama. Now, he tweeted this picture of Barack Obama saying, "We won." Well, that's what he tweeted. We won. Now, you can tune in at 10:40 for a discussion on the trends of the week with the managing director of Roy Africa, Tonya Khoury. So stay tuned for that one. Let's now take a look at the picture of the day that comes from @Kaya James. It shows a picture of Ted Dumitru, and it says, very sad news. We'll see if we can put up that picture here on the screen there. Very sad news. Ex-Bafana Bafana coach, hashtag Ted Dumitru, died at the age of 76. Go well, Master Ted, the Professor. You can rest in peace. He was known as the Master. You can see him there in the picture. Yeah, he brought something special to our soccer. Now, the comment of the day comes from @KofifiFM 972, and it says, "Rest in peace, Ted Dumitru." Now, he's a former Mamelodi Sundowns, as well as a Kaizer Chiefs coach. Hashtag rest in peace, Ted. Let's take a look at some of the comments rather now. Condolences continue to pour in for the former Bafana coach Ted Dumitru. 76-year-old collapsed in Johannesburg Mall yesterday after suffering a heart attack. You can also send us your comments at SABC Newsroom, and let's take a look at those now. On the screen right there, we have the first one from Dumasani. Says, Ted Dumitru, rest in peace. Thanks for all the contributions. That's from Dumasani Mashlangu rather, on the Twitter handle. Tibop says, rest in peace, Ted Dumitru. He helped a lot of players to develop, especially my compatriot Collins Mbasuma. And this one from Kainis. He says, rest in peace, Ted Dumitru. Thanks for the memories at Kaizer Chiefs and hashtag South African football. We've lost a legend. Rest in peace, Master Ted. There you see the picture right there on your screen. There's the picture of the man himself, Ted Dumitru. That's the man that says, you go quickly to the airport just around the corner. He said that to my colleague Robert Rawa at one stage, that he's just off to the airport quickly. Now, let's take a look at some of the front pages of the newspapers from around the globe. And we're starting off in Europe. The Times reports that steps towards creating a European army are being kept secret from the British voters until the day after next month's referendum. You see it there, EU army plans kept secret from the voters, and there's a picture of the cops getting involved there. Moving on to the United Kingdom, the City AM says that high-speed 2 could be up to 5 times more expensive than its French equivalent, according to a new academic study. Boffins blast runaway cost of the high-speed 2. That's the train that they're talking about, reigniting rows over whether the £56 billion railway plan is a vanity project. Well, there you have it. And finally, in New York, the Wall Street Journal reports that yesterday's oil prices rose above $50 a barrel, putting crude back within a range between $50 and $60, in which almost everybody benefits, economists and investors says. Well, close to 50, that's the magical mark for the Brent crude oil. Of course, if it goes beyond that, remember at one stage you used to pay about $110 a barrel, and it's now just 50. Well, let's take a look at what's happening in the courts today, and we start off in Port Elizabeth here at home, where the second bail application of the businessman Christopher Panayota will continue in the local magistrate's court today. Now, he attempted to get bail with new information. Then let's move on to Pretoria. The case against a Springs man and his wife, who allegedly physically, emotionally and socially and intellectually abused their 5 children. And that case is expected to continue in the High Court in Pretoria. The man pleaded not guilty to 21 charges of sexual and physical abuse, as well as producing and dealing in drugs. The wife pleaded not guilty to all the charges against her. And in Polokwane, 15 people arrested for corruption at the Beitbridge border post and are expected to appear in Messina court. Now, they include a manager at the Home Affairs Office's SARS officer, as well as a lawyer. Can you believe that? Well, we'll be sure to keep you updated on more court cases that is, as they happen today. We'll take a short break and be right back after that.
To be African is beautiful. To be African is a privilege.
It represents hard work. It represents being able to stand on your own.
And respecting other cultures as well.
It's about promoting African heritage.
We are all Africans. Let's come together so that we can have a formidable force.
Our cultures interlink with one another.
And by standing together and embracing one another, you know, there's power in unity.
It is time to cut off this issue of xenophobia.
I stand for African unity. I stand for promoting unity in Africa, because
there are many opportunities
to be whatever you want to be.
Africa is one of the most important continents.
Because if we can come together as one, we will be able to actually build a better Africa, the new Africa for the future.
And if we unite our hearts and our minds together and we go forward,
we will conquer.
So let us all arise and be proudly African.
Being an African is who I am right now.
I'm proudly African. I love Africa.
Wishing you all a very happy Africa Month.
One love.
Now, we're asking you that question. The focus this morning is on blessers and blessies. And the question that we pose to you, what is your impression of this latest phenomenon that we call blessers and blessies? And do you understand the term? But the man that will tell us a lot more is right now sitting in studio with us. The trend blesser started on social media, where jobless young women posted about their exotic lifestyles, claiming that they had been blessed. Social media users then started asking the girls who their blessers were. Serge Kabonga is a famous blesser with at least 5 blessees whom he showers with money and gifts. And Serge says that he believes in sharing his fortune with young girls. He now joins us in studio to tell us why he's a blesser. A very good morning to you, Serge.
How are you doing?
I am very well, and you?
Good, thank you.
Now, a lot of people would be asking, what made you decide to become a blesser to young girls?
Okay, actually, I'm not only the blesser to the young girl. I bless everyone, you know, because God pointed me to be a blesser, to bless people.
How so?
Also, you know, I'm from the Christian family, you know. Bless always come to those who believe, you know. That's how I've been created. I have a very beautiful heart. You know, I feel for people, you know. I don't bless people when it comes on the time of changing or any transaction, you know. I bless people like when you have a problem, you know. Let's say people around me, you know, and the girls who are around me and the guys who are around me and the friends who are around me. When they have a problem, they bring their issue to me. And then I decide on it, how to assist them. That's why we call it is bless.
Is it only young girls that you bless? Or do you bless young boys, men?
I bless everyone. Even now I receive messages, I receive requests from everyone. And then it's not only guys or girls. I even bless church.
Yes.
We're even on the issue we focus in the school, you know. When we donate in the school, those are blessings, you know.
So you believe that by providing these blessings to people that you are getting blessed in return?
Yes, we do get blessed in the return. Even the Bible says that. When you bless the person, they return back good things to you.
And how they return those blessings to you in return? What do you ask in return for the
I don't request anything. It depends how you bless me back. You understand? It depends. We're getting it in a different way. You understand? Like we've been saying around sometime on the girls, whatever he appreciates from you, if she feels she needs to return sex to you, that is up to her. But that doesn't mean we're going on the transaction that we're doing, like we're changing something or I'm blessing her for her to return sex to me. You understand? Let's say to guys, if I bless a guy, he return to do a good work for me, that is up to the guy. I cannot say that the guy needs to return sex to me. You understand? I cannot say the girl, actually, he just needs to return sex to me. You understand? Just because all these things come around and the media around taking things on a certain way, they focus most of the time, they say when you bless a girl need to return sex. No, it depends.
How she wants to return the favor.
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes he give you love. Love is not only about sex. You understand? It can be there for you if she's your girlfriend. You understand? Most people we bless, it can be your girlfriend, can be your wife, it can be people around you.
Yes.
We are not specifically focused in the young girls.
So it's everybody?
It's everybody.
Are you married?
Yes, I'm married.
And your wife approves of you being a blesser to young girls which would provide you services in return if they want to?
Okay, we are not saying that we only blessing young girl for her to tolerate type of thing like that. I put it general.
Yes.
We blessing everyone. I'm not only blessing people, we even blessing the church. If I go to church today, I buy, like let's say, food need from the church or the clothes need from the church. Those are part of blessing. I bless my wife in the house. I bless my daughter.
And she's happy with you blessing other people?
I don't think she'll have a problem with that if I'm not blessing people in the better way. You understand? If those people returned whatever they decide to return to me, I don't think she'll have a problem with that.
Is it because that you are blessing so many people that you get that you have so many blessings yourselves, and that's why you can sustain yourself? Or what do you do to sustain yourself financially in order to bless other people?
I'm a businessman. You know, I run a company. I'm the CEO of the company Rails Group International. I host most of the artist TV show, and then entertainment business.
But many people would like to know, of course, you know, is it true that you have friends like people in high places like Kenny Kunene and so forth, and what else do you do besides your business in order to sustain yourself financially?
No. When you ask me about Kenny, I know Kenny like everybody knows Kenny. You understand? There is no any specific things that I'll say I know about Kenny. Everybody knows Kenny. That's how I know Kenny. You know, I make my money on my work, what I do. That's where I make my money. I can afford myself.
Now, you mentioned a couple of times when I ask you the question about the blessers, you says we. So there's more blessers in this country.
Really, you know that before I even answer you that question. You know, you are the blesser too. It cannot just be only because Serge Kabonge
I bless you with an interview.
Yes, that's blessed too. You know, putting me here, asking me those questions, making clear to the public. You know, you bless me so that the public will understand what is we've been talking about, the blessers.
Now, Kenny Kunene, you says you do know him, but he indicated that the trend of being a blesser is close to prostitution. What do you say to that?
But I cannot say that's Kenny. To me, I don't think that should be part of that, because when I bless, I don't bless you because you to give me sex. If I bless you for you to give me a sex, we can put it on that line, what Kenny say. But the mission is not about sex. The mission is about, even you, the way you are there, if somebody that you know, we approach you with a problem, you decide to assist the person with the problem, that doesn't mean you bless the person to return sex to you or to return anything. That was not in your intention. Your intention was about to bless the person, to assist the person on the problem. Sometimes I don't get blessing from the same person that assists. I get blessing from different people, though God opened doors for me, you know.
So there's no indication of what that person should return. It's up to them what they would return, whether it's sex or whether it's other favors.
We put it clear, you understand? During most of our interviews that we did, we put it clear. It depends to the person. If the person feel he appreciate you in a certain way, if he decide he want to return you to show you heaven, that is up to the person.
Serge Kabongo, thank you so much for joining me here in studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's a blesser right there. There you have him, Serge Kabongo, all the way from Congo.
No, Angola.
Angola. And he's blessing South Africans. Now, we're going to come back to the topic, and of course you can answer me that question. What's your take and your impression of this phenomenon of being a blesser and a blessee? It's on your screen right now. You can let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. You can also do so on the Facebook page. By the way, if you like us on the Facebook page, you become blessed and you become a member to put your comment on the Facebook page. But let's now move on to some of the comments that we've received, and we go abroad. Donald Trump says that he's honored to have secured the support of enough Republican delegates to win the party's nomination for the U.S. presidency. Well, I tell you, a lot of pundits says that will never happen, but it's very close. Let's take a look what you have to say on the comment page. And let's start off here with White Suburban says, if Donald Trump becomes the president, I am leaving America and I'm moving to California. At Suburban White Man, there you have it. He says that. Now, I want you to go back to that comment. Please just go back to that comment. Listen to this, the phrase and the sentence. If Donald Trump becomes president, I am leaving America and I'm moving to California. Now, can you believe it? That's an American in their own country stating that they'll move to California. All right, anyway, let's move on to the next one. Some more comments. Let's move on to the next one if we can. There we go. This one from Luke Cutworth says, Donald Trump just secured the Republican nomination for president. Can we hurry up and invest space planes? Please, I want to leave this earth. This one from Les Floyd said, there's a real danger that Donald Trump could become the president and there's not enough room on the International Space Station for us all. Now, some people are not very happy about Donald Trump becoming the president, perhaps, of the U.S. As you know, he will be the Republican. If I can just have that in my ear down, please, guys. Yukio Strachan says, think about this for a second. Donald Trump is the GOP nominee for president of the United States of America, says Yukio Strachan. And let's see if there's any more. And I think that's some of the comments that we have currently. Well, you can keep them coming on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. You can also like us on the Facebook page. If you like us there, you become part and parcel of the Informed. Talking about Facebook, let's take a look at what we have on our Facebook page this morning. The Minister of Arts and Culture, Natim Tetwa, says the month of May, which is Africa Month, cannot be commemorated without mentioning the name of veteran South African journalist Nathaniel Nat Nakasa. You remember him? Hey, a wonderful memory there. And the Milk for Change campaign is calling on South Africans to donate long-life milk for needy individuals who are often in our country without milk, and that's children. And finally, thousands of jobs are expected to be lost in the manufacturing sector as the slowdown in the economy continues. These are some of the comments that we have on our Facebook page. You can find more of these stories on our Facebook page at SABC Newsroom. Keep them coming and we'll read them as we continue today. Now, staying on the trend that still has social media buzzing, blessers and blessies. It's all over the pages now. A blessie, Amanda Tele, is unemployed, but she lives in a flat in the suburb. She drives a Mercedes-Benz and she wears a range of luxury brands. Amanda is joining us in studio to tell us more about her lifestyle. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Morning, how are you?
I'm very well, and you?
I'm all right, thank you.
You must be happy because you are blessed.
Oh, very.
Why are you so blessed?
I don't know. It's just my luck, actually. I don't even know how it come about that I ended up in this kind of situation, but yeah.
But how did it start?
Well, I've been in several relationships, and things went so well. You know, I mean, obviously all relationships have ups and downs, and I just got to a point where I'm like, you know what, screw this. I'm not doing it anymore. And yeah, and I'm just done with the relationships. Let me just have fun. And here I am.
So is this having fun?
Yeah, it's basically just, it's basically just about having fun and nothing else. I'm not looking for any commitment.
What are some of the perks that come with being a blessie?
Well, I just need to make sure that I'm always there when I am needed to be there.
Oh, so that's 24/7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot have an excuse of, no, I'm busy with this and that. No, I cannot.
Is that a particular blessie that we are referring to? Is that several blessies?
It is a particular
blesser,
blessie.
Sorry.
No, it's just one blesser.
Only one blesser?
Yes.
Okay. That blesser, is that person married or single?
Yes, he is married.
And you happy with that?
Well, I'm okay with it.
His wife is happy with that?
I don't know, and it's none of my business. It's none of my business.
Okay. Now, since most of these men are married, are you allowed to have another partner yourself if you want to become more involved and you feel like, now it's time for me to end this luxury life? I want to have a relationship that I can spend with one person only, which is mine.
Okay, well, first of all, we're in an open relationship, and it's so, I mean, I understand that he's with somebody else, and if there comes a time in my life where I feel, okay, you know what, this is what I want to do now when I settle down, and well, obviously that is something that we'll have to sit down as adults and discuss. But I am allowed to having my own partners. I just need to be available, however, when he needs me.
Were you, besides being in a relationship, you are not working, or are you working?
Well, I was working, but not.
And how long has it been?
Oof, over 3 years. I haven't been working for like over 3 years now.
Over 3 years? And you've been blessed ever since?
Well, I'd like to say. Yeah.
Now, you heard the minister earlier. I hope you probably heard the interview that we had. And he called the act of being a blesser and a blessie disgusting. And also some people referring to it as prostitution. What do you say to that?
Well, you know what? We live in a country where you're allowed to say what you want to say and believe in whatever that you want to believe in. So if it makes them sleep better at night to call us that way, then so be it. I'm just a young girl who believes that, you know what, I am not going to be in a relationship where I am not 100% happy. How do I put it? let them say what they want to say. I mean, honestly, I don't really care what the next person thinks about me. If it makes me sleep better at night, then honestly, if you don't put a plate on my table, then why should I care about what you have to say?
What does your family say, and even your friends say, about the relationship that you have with
You'll
your
be
blesser?
surprised. I've got so many friends that are actually following me after this whole thing. Every girl is like, you know what, you need to help me find a blessie. I want to be like you, but it's not like that. I mean, it's not like there's a certain place where you can find them or whatsoever, but it's something that is common. I mean, you can meet a blesser anywhere. So in terms of my family, they cannot say much, I think, because I'm able to help with financial things there and they are needed. So, yeah.
The minister also indicated a number of young girls between the age of 15 and 24 are exposed to the dangers of HIV/AIDS and other sexual transmitted diseases. Is that one of your concerns?
Well, that shouldn't be, because actually I do protect myself. And after all, I'm with a man who's married, so why would I be having unprotected sex with somebody who's got his own family?
So he's protecting himself as well, or does he prefer?
No, we do protect ourselves. Yeah, we do protect ourselves. After all, he is married, like I had mentioned earlier on. Yeah.
Yes. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Still being blessed?
No, maybe by then I would have probably decided to settle down. I don't know.
So do you think that you'll find somebody, knowing your background, or knowing that you were in a relationship with a married man, that will settle down with you?
I don't know, hey? I don't know. Actually, I would love to settle, of course, after a long run, but not at the moment. I'm very happy that I'm single. I'm able to do what I want to do, when I want to do, however I want to do it. So I do not think having a partner, it would, you know?
So you'll cross that bridge when you do get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you see a lot of blessies around? You said a lot of people are following you and want to know about your lifestyle. But is there a number of blessies around that are friends with you, that you know of?
Yeah, I do have a lot. I've got a lot of friends. It's just that probably they wouldn't want to be as open as I am about it. But it's something that is going on all over the world, actually. And yeah, so I do have friends that believe in the same things that I believe in.
Amanda, I bless you. Thank you so much for joining us here in studio. That was Amanda Tele. She is a blessee. Let's take a listen to a song called Blessie, I think.
The Last Empire.
Yeah, let's go. I can be your blesser, make you rich forever. I can spend my money on you, girl, forever. Car, shoes, and makeup, baby girl, I'm a savior. Dream straight to France, bring your friends, I don't care, girl. Let me be your blesser, 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 girl. Be a blesser. Be a blesser. Be a blesser. Be a blesser. It ain't about me, man, it's all about her. Baby, won't you? Yeah. Pretend as if you love me.
Well, it's all about being blessed this morning, if you're a blesser or a blessee. But intimacy between partners that are divided by a large age gap based on materialistic benefits are booming in our society. You just heard it there from Amanda. Now, they involve adults that have lost their youth but have gained enough wealth to buy the company of many young companions. Those relationships involve normally transactional sex and are often described as being intergenerational in nature. Sugar daddies and mummies are a hot topic, with researchers trying to explain the alarmingly high HIV rates for teenage girls. You heard the minister early on. Research by the Higher Education and Training HIV/AIDS program reveals that 14% of relationships involving female tertiary students are based on transactional sex. Now this, as the blesser or the sugar daddy phenomenon, continues to make waves on social media. In these types of relationships, an older, wealthier man is normally the blesser. And the young woman, like you've seen Amanda, is the blessee. But now, the Department of Social Development says that part of its $4.2 billion budget will go towards curbing the exploitation of young women by sugar daddies. To unpack this latest trend, we are joined in our Cape Town studios by Ilona Tasco. She's a doctoral candidate at Oxford University and research associate at the AIDS and Society Research Unit at UCT. A very good morning to you and welcome, Ilona.
Good morning to you too.
First and foremostly, explain to me this phenomenon. How does transactional sex differ from sex work?
Well, as a researcher of sexual and reproductive health, I like to say that all sex is in fact transactional. Our team actually researches the social and structural factors that make young men and women more vulnerable compared to others, particularly in South Africa. So transactional sex in our work is defined as sex in exchange for money, gifts, better grades, food, shelter, and a variety of material and non-material items. But I think what sets transactional sex and the relationships you are describing apart is that they are, at their core, truly unequal. And they're unequal because of a variety of reasons. Because of the age differential that you mentioned, because of gender norms that expects men and women to behave in certain ways, and of course because of the economic inequality and differential access to resources that the partners have. And as a result, the younger partner in these relationships is then faced with the greater challenges at negotiating the relationship and sex on their own terms. So that increases their vulnerability.
Transactional sex, should we refer to that as prostitution?
No, but that is that is a choice. I think the core of what we're talking about is that these are very unequal relationships where the younger partner cannot negotiate their terms. I think the terminology used is up to different parties can call it different things.
Let's talk data. In terms of figures, how many sugar daddies, or blessers as they are now called, do we have in South Africa? Is the data available?
Well, you mentioned a study that quotes about 14%, but other studies that are available and have been conducted in South Africa in the last decade have reported anything from 3 to about 21%. So a national study of about 12,000 15 to 24-year-olds from Wits University found about 3% amongst both boys and girls, but a study by another team in the Eastern Cape and Soweto found up to 21%. A study from our own team has found 5 and 7% amongst boys and girls in the last year, so it varies.
But those are the stats for the blessees. But what about the blessers, the wealthier men? Do we have stats on that?
That's actually a very good question. We do not actually have a lot of studies that try to find and actually talk directly to the sugar daddies or the blessers, and that's an area where I hope more research will be happening now that many of them are out in some ways and able and interested to share their experiences.
Now, what are some of the main socioeconomic forces that drive these young people, including young males and young females, into these kinds of relationships, you think?
Our research so far shows that there are multiple factors that may pull or push young people into these relationships. You had the stories of Amanda and Serge so far, but what makes young people extra vulnerable and even more at risk in these relationships is when certain factors are combined. So factors like hunger and poverty in the family may push young women to search for a sugar daddy so they can stay in school and afford uniforms, etc. It could be the desire to access additional resources and employment and opportunities that may pull or push others. But what we have found in our research is that when these factors are combined, the rates of transactional sex reported by young people are much higher. So an adolescent in a healthy setting, in a setting without these risk factors, may report rates of about 1% transactional sex. But if they are going hungry, if they're living in a family where they have a sick caregiver, particularly if this caregiver or parent or adult is sick with HIV or AIDS-related complications, they can report up to 57% rates of transactional sex. And this is also made worse when abuse is present, and in these relationships that's quite common.
The country is currently in a spiral where a lot of people suffer economically. Are these the drivers that force young people into these type of situations?
Inequality and limited access to resources certainly drives transactional sex and the need to find and access resources through alternative means, be that through relationships, like these ones. Definitely, as I mentioned, hunger and poverty are strong factors, and not just in South Africa,
Ilona,
but also in neighboring countries.
Yeah. Ilona, thank you so much for your time and joining us in our Cape Town studio.
Thank you for having me.
That's Ilona Tusco. She's a UCT researcher, and she's also giving us an indication in terms of how many blessees are out there in the country. So it's quite a large number, between 14 and 21% she mentioned, because those are the figures that differ there. What do you make of the question that we posed to you? That phenomenon of blesser and blessees. Let me know what's on your mind. Now, there's the question on your screen. What is your impression of the latest phenomenon of the blesser and blessees? You heard some of the arguments right here in our studios telling you that they are not ashamed to be blessees or even blessers. What do you make of that? We'll take a short break and we'll be right back at the top of the hour.
Why are electoral systems important in a democracy?
We think of democracy as voting people into office. The other side of the coin is that we would be more empowered and more accountable in politics if we could do the opposite, is vote them out when they don't deliver.
Politics is about who gets what, when and how.
If you look up on the internet as to how the head of state is chosen, it says monarchy.
We should not refer to an election as a contest.
So we should not shy away from the fact that an election is a contest. Of course, I do admit that it's not a bloody contest, or it shouldn't be a bloody contest.
It shouldn't be a bloody
people,
contest.
Fight and, of course, and
it should also not be a beauty contest.
Then it shouldn't be also a beauty contest either.
Swiss people, for example, can travel internationally with a cantonal passport, not even a national one. That's like us traveling on a Free State passport, for example.
It's Friday, the 27th of May, 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404, Jumbo Africa. And a very warm welcome to the second hour as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg to the rest of our beautiful African continent. I'm Elvis Preston, and I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. Renee will be joining us shortly. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Today, we focus on blessers and blessies. And the question we pose to you is, what is your impression and your perception about this phenomenon of the blesser and blessies? Let me know what's on your mind. You can send us your comments on our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines with Renee Vest.
The ANC's battle plan to retain control most of the country's municipalities will come under scrutiny today when the party finalises its candidates list for the August 3rd local elections. The situation remains tense in Lobode in the Eastern Cape after a taxi driver was gunned down, allegedly in a taxi-related violence. And the bail application of Christopher Panayiotou will continue in the Port Elizabeth Magistrates Court today. Well, we'll get into news shortly, but first let's take a look at your sports headlines with Elvis.
Thank you, Renee. Let's take a look at your sports headlines. Tributes are pouring in for the former South African Football Association Technical Committee member and Bafana Bafana coach Ted Dumitru. And the 2015-2016 Nedbank Cup final takes place at the Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane tomorrow. And South Africa's most successful rugby franchise, Super Rugby franchise that is this season, the Lions, are quietly confident ahead of their Super Rugby clash against the Bulls on Saturday. Those are all your sports headlines, but before we go any further, let's go back to Renee to give you an update on the news.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Now, the ANC battle to retain control of most of the country's municipalities will come under scrutiny today when the party finalises its candidates list for the August 3rd local elections. Party leaders will meet in Irene, north of Pretoria, to select mayor and councillor candidates for the poll. The ANC is facing what is expected to be a fierce electoral battle with the opposition, Democratic Alliance and EFF, eyeing to take control of metro councils run by the ANC. The ruling party has been running against time to finalise the candidate list. Factional battles have led to violent clashes, even political killings, as members squabble over who should take it to the final list. The party recommended 3 names to communities, leaving it to them for the final decision. It will be the first time that the ANC announces mayoral candidates for metros and district municipalities ahead of the elections. The extended National Executive Committee meeting is expected to receive the report on the much-talked-about state capture. The expropriation bill is on its way to President Jacob Zuma for his signature. It allows the expropriation of property for compensation for public purposes. Various political parties expressed their views on the bill.
Final plenary of the National Assembly before the election recess. 2 particularly important orders, the new House rules and the expropriation bill.
The bill seeks to align the Expropriation Act of 1975 with the Constitution and to provide a common framework to guide the processes and procedures for the expropriation of property by organs of state.
But the DA, UDM, ACDP and FF Plus don't trust the process.
Expropriation without reasonable legal protection against abuse is no longer just a threat to those in the agricultural sector, but also to those churches, banks, commercial businesses, food producers, miners and ordinary people with no guarantee of compensation. We believe the expropriation bill creates insecurity.
Moving on to the new rule book, it's been in the making since 2012, but the last 2 years brought on a whole new challenge.
Never in my life, and certainly as my history as a Member of Parliament, did I ever think that we would be writing rules for a violent Parliament. And I think we can all agree that the violence that has taken over our Parliament not only degrades what we stand for, but certainly the hard-won democracy that we all enjoy today.
An effort by the DA to amend the rules was defeated and the rule book was subsequently adopted. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
The situation remains tense at Lebode in the Eastern Cape after a taxi driver was gunned down, allegedly in taxi-related violence. The latest death brings the total number of people killed between Mthatha and Lebode to 5 in the past 3 weeks. One of the taxi associations has resorted to armed escorts on the disputed route.
Another victim of taxi violence. The two associations have been feuding over the R61 road between Mthatha and Lebode for the past 5 months. The Mthatha Taxi Owners Association is now hiring private security guards to escort its members.
They promised us, in fact, that they're going to deploy a flying squad unit together with public order, that is BOBS, and the police from the Lebode to patrol the R61. It surprises me now, as you can see. We've been here for 3 hours. There was not even a single unit that was here.
Police say this is unacceptable.
We'll never allow the force that is going around carrying big firearms, threatening people that are, threatening passengers, threatening people in our country. We can't allow that.
Hawkers are also affected by the taxi rivalry. 6 people have been arrested in connection with 3 of the 5 murders. Police say they are following strong leads to make more arrests. Samkita Mangunana, SABC News, Lebode.
The bail application of Christopher Panayiotou will continue in the Port Elizabeth Magistrates Court today. He has been charged with planning his wife's murder. Yesterday, the magistrate adjourned the court after the state read out affidavits of investigating officer Kana Swanepoel. His affidavit contains statements from state witness Lutando Sioni and Donovan Vosloo. They reveal how Panayiotou persuaded his employee, Sioni, to be part of the plot to kill his wife. Vosloo's statement, meanwhile, revealed that he wiped data from the phones of the accused. Jade's post-mortem revealed wounds on her fingers and head. The state maintains that it still has a strong case and the defense will reply today. Now, the SABC says it will no longer broadcast footage of people burning or destroying public property due to protests in any of its news bulletins. The SABC has also appealed to other broadcasters and to the print media not to cover the violent protests that are on the rise and destroying public institutions. The public broadcaster says it is not going to provide publicity to such actions, which it describes as destructive and regressive. In a statement, SABC COO Claudi Motseneng says the SABC has a mandate to educate citizens and therefore taken this decision to show that violent protests are not necessary. Labour Federation COSATU has called on the ANC's National Executive Committee to provide decisive leadership to keep the party united and focused on local government elections. COSATU weighed in on this week's resignation of KwaZulu-Natal Premier Senzo Mchunu at the end of its 4-day Central Executive Committee in Johannesburg yesterday.
COSATU's top structure meeting reflected on the state of its alliance with the ANC and SACP. It wants the leadership to address disunity, factionalism and ill-discipline characterizing the alliance, and for the ANC to act urgently.
The CEC also expressed deep reservation about development in the ANC, including the decision to recall the KwaZulu-Natal Premier Comrades Senzo Mchunu without consulting the alliance partners. This was an unnecessary decision that was carelessly handled and does not serve the interests of the ANC.
Our movement has got to step up its game and quickly intervene through the NEC to deal with this crisis of instability and divisions.
The Federation also referred to the ongoing spat between the Police's Special Investigating Unit, the Hawks, and Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. They dismissed the use of state agencies to fight political battles. COSATU urged its members to vote for the ANC in the local government elections. Muntlengani Dipoko, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Metro Rail in the Western Cape says it has started implementing improved security measures in an effort to curb vandalism on trains. The rail agency met with the Cape Chamber of Commerce and business owners in Cape Town yesterday to discuss the impact of damage to rail services. Damage to infrastructure after the prolonged strike has cost Metro Rail close to 200 million rand.
It's seen as a deliberate attack on the passenger rail service. Torching off trains, not only affecting commuters, but the day-to-day operations of businesses. And it's affecting their bottom line.
As businesses, we expect productivity. I mean, without effective and efficiencies, we cannot be productive, we cannot be profitable and employ more people.
70% of my staff and students are using trains. And if we allow this to happen and to deteriorate, what are we teaching young people? And also, how do you discipline staff? You can't, because it's not their fault.
Metro Rail has proposed improved security services as one of the solutions to curb vandalism.
How do we also then look at, declaring some of the certain sections within the rail space, essential services, so that, we don't have the impact that it will have to an essential rail service when there is issues of strike.
Since 2015, more than 40 trains have been affected by vandalism. Damage amounts to almost 200 million rand, and services cannot run at full capacity. Only one person has been arrested following the latest spate of arson attacks. Carmel Lochenberg-Roberts, SABC News, Cape Town.
In news abroad, US Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has reached the number of delegates needed to secure the party's presidential nomination. He defeated 16 other Republican contenders and has the 1,238 delegates needed for nomination. Republicans will finalize their nomination at a convention in July. SABC's Nick Harper reports.
From the day Donald Trump entered America's contentious presidential race 1 year ago, the billionaire businessman with virtually no political experience has defied the odds.
And we are going to make our country great again.
He fought off 16 Republican contenders in a heated primary race, garnered support from high-profile conservatives, and has attracted millions of voters who believe he's able to challenge the status quo of Washington politics. Controversial comments that are a staple of his campaign have yet to cost him a win.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
Trump's latest achievement, earning enough delegates to sail into the Republican convention as the presumptive nominee, marks the completion of a primary campaign that has defied predictions of failure and sets the stage for a bitter battle in November's general election against likely Democrat rival Hillary Clinton.
He's an outsider, and he is a conduit for all this fear and anger that so many millions of voters are expressing through the primaries and the caucuses. Hillary Clinton is the insider, and that, no matter what her qualifications are, is a real burden in some ways for her to carry.
Clinton is well on her way to securing the Democratic nomination, even as her contender, Bernie Sanders, remains in the race.
We have to unify. I'm so tired of it, Alex. It appears, and he's going to be the nominee.
Port Elizabeth's Red Location Museum in New Brighton will reopen its doors soon. This after community leaders and the Metro reached an agreement that it should be reopened while talks continue.
A divisive issue put to bed. The museum was forced to close its doors in 2013. Angry residents wanted their defective 48 square metre homes to be refurbished rather than replaced with 40 square metre homes. Red Location leaders have buried the hatchet.
We closed the museum. Now we say it's been over. Now we're opening the Red Location Museum.
But not everyone's on board.
It divided the community very well, because now what they are doing is that they take those who accepted the 40 square metre, to come and oppress those who do not want their houses to be demolished, you know. And now they are using that power, you know, to minimize any chances of us getting what we want.
Residents supporting the reopening declined to comment, saying their acceptance was subject to 3 housing issues that needed to be addressed. The Metro says it will continue to encourage residents to accept the smaller houses.
And these keys that they handed over here is not unlocking only the doors of the Red Location Museum. It is unlocking the doors and opening the pathway to the creative economy and to the township economy.
Local artists have welcomed the reopening of the museum.
It's been a struggle these 3 years for many artists, you know. Some even left Port Elizabeth because there were no working spaces. So now if it opens, then it means there's workspace, there's opportunity, and we could partner with other people and then and get the support that we need as artists.
The municipality is confident it will open in 3 months' time. Those still disgruntled have vowed to continue fighting. Janine Lee, SABC News, Port Elizabeth.
A United Nations NGO committee, which includes South Africa, has rejected a press freedom watchdog's request for consultative status within the world body. The Committee to Protect Journalists is an independent New York-based non-profit that promotes the rights of journalists around the world. They highlight the corrupt practices by states that could be harmful to the profession. Prosecutor of International Criminal Court has defended the body's
application with 10 votes against, 6 in favour and 3 abstentions. A vote held at the behest of the United States that felt that the process to accredit the NGO was being unfairly delayed.
Countries have to decide which side are they on. Are they on the side of free expression and organizations that try to advance that cause, or are they hostile to Article 19? And I think if you look at the list of countries that voted no, one learns a few things.
A Western official expressed surprise at South Africa's harsh positions and views the committee process as pitted against groups that broadly defend human rights, be they LGBT rights, reproductive rights or otherwise. But South Africa rejected this notion, arguing that they were simply following a template provided to committee members on due diligence and felt that the United States had rushed to a vote when questions remained unanswered. Among the concerns raised by South Africa was CPJ's definition of speech that incites hatred and its lack of support for punitive measures against such speech.
If only the delegation that went on Twitter now to say South Africa and other countries who are members of this NGO committee did not really want to accredit this very same NGO. If only they had waited and not jumped to gun, we should be somewhere now, because they were going to be given a chance to say, go and come up with a better explanation on how we need to take this process forward.
South Africa joined 9 countries in voting against the group, among them China, Russia, Sudan, Venezuela and Cuba. Sherman Brycepease, SABC News, New York.
The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has defended the body's process of conducting preliminary examinations before a final decision to move forward with an investigation is taken. This despite criticism from certain countries that the court is not an effective judicial body given its selectivity in prosecuting certain cases.
The Office of the Prosecutor is currently conducting 8 preliminary examinations. Among them, war crimes examinations in Afghanistan since 2007 and Iraq since 2014. Crimes against humanity are being examined in Guinea since 2009 and Colombia since 2004.
I do not think that it is ineffective. If you look at some of the situations where we are engaged in preliminary examinations, we've actually seen actions being taken.
In January 2015, the prosecutor undertook a preliminary examination of the situation in Palestine, but has yet to launch a full investigation.
The work is progressing, but as I also said at the very beginning, I cannot put a timeline to preliminary examinations. It depends on the facts and circumstances.
We also raised the question of Sudan's President Omar al-Bashir and what sanctions are available to the court for states parties that refuse to execute his warrant of arrest. She indicated, as in South Africa's case, that the judges of the court would write to the states party concerned, seeking an explanation as to why they did not live up to their obligations under the Rome Statute. Where the judicial process ends, the court can then refer the offending party to the Assembly of States Parties for action, or in the case of Sudan, to the Security Council, because it was indeed the Council that referred the situation in Sudan to the ICC in the first place. What action the Council would then take against South Africa, for example, remains unknown, as there is no existing precedent. Sherwin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.
South Africa and Kenya will hold talks with other African countries on finding a common position on ivory trade. Speaking on the sidelines of the United Nations Environment Assembly in the Kenyan capital, Environmental Affairs Minister Edna Molewa said South Africa will encourage frank discussions. Kenya has indicated that it will seek a total ban on ivory trade.
South Africa and Kenya are both members of the Lusaka Agreement Task Force, which brings together Eastern and Southern African countries to cooperate in the war against illegal trade in wildlife and wildlife products. The Johannesburg summit will for both countries provide a forum to rally the world to support efforts by the continent to end the destructive trade.
Kenya will be seeking a total ban on the trade in ivory, and we hope that you can stand with us as we seek to take this critical step to preserve the animals that contribute so much to our ecosystems and way of life.
South Africa is however seeking consensus ahead of the September meeting.
We do have a dialogue planned that would necessitate the two of us, between ourselves and Kenya, to just prepare for the Africa Group meeting that's going to be sitting, to look at such proposals and how we can sort of work together in identifying areas of convergence first, but also areas where we could actually find some solutions to proposals of that nature.
On reducing greenhouse gas emissions, delegates at the Assembly were reminded that the world is in a race against time to reduce temperatures below 2 degrees. The Assembly comes to a close on Friday. Sarah Kimani, SABC News, Kenya.
A declaration at the G7 meeting in Japan says a vote by the UK to leave the European Union would pose a serious threat to global growth. In their final statement, the group of leaders warned that the UK exit from the EU would reverse the trend in increased global trade, investment and jobs. The leaders all agreed that world economic growth is an urgent priority, requiring a global response.
In its final statement, the group warned that a UK exit from the EU would reverse the trend of increased global trade, investment and jobs. The meeting brings together the world's leading 7 industrialized nations. The final statement said global growth is a priority for dealing with threats to the world's economy and security. But the warning about the economic consequences of the UK leaving the EU comes as Britain prepares for a referendum on the 23rd of June. Prime Minister David Cameron has been campaigning for Britain to stay within the 28-country bloc, with recent polls suggesting a lead for those who support remaining within the EU. Meanwhile, French President is expected to bring forth and follow-up initiatives set in Paris Climate Agreement last year. Prior to the meeting, activists also called for host country Japan to stop investing in fossil fuels industry. In last year's meeting in Germany, the G7 leaders supported a reduction in global greenhouse gas and backed a global target for limiting the rise in average global temperatures to 2 degrees Celsius compared with pre-industrial levels. Other summit topics also include terrorism, refugees, trade, cybersecurity, and maritime security.
2 foreign tourists have been killed and 2 others are missing after a packed speedboat capsized off the popular Thai holiday island of Koh Samui. The boat flipped over on Thursday afternoon after it was slammed by a wave near a rocky stretch of the coast off the Gulf of Thailand.
The speedboat was travelling towards the island of Koh Samui when strong waves overturned it. It was carrying 36 people, many of them tourists. A British woman is among the 2 dead. Rescuers are still searching for another 2 people missing. Koh Samui is one of Thailand's biggest islands and is popular with tourists.
Iraqi government-led forces are slicing through ISIS positions around Fallujah, the citadel of the terror organization in the country. After less than a week of combat, armed units have recaptured key strategic points surrounding the city.
The battle for control surrounding Fallujah. Iraqi security forces are able to claim victory in Garma in a fierce fight as they close in on Fallujah, an Islamic State stronghold. Civilians in Fallujah are already fleeing the fighting. Now these families are making do in territory under control of Iraqi security forces. This man is asked how security forces are treating him.
Very good.
He is asked about his hopes.
We hope for security to be spread and the government forces to advance more and more.
About 40 families managed to flee in the past 36 hours. One man said he had been hiding in a drainage pipe. There are still about 50,000 people trapped in Fallujah, a city without drinking water, electricity, and fuel, and a war closing in.
To be African is beautiful. To be African is a privilege.
It represents hard work. It represents being able to stand on your own.
And respecting other cultures as well.
It's about promoting African heritage.
We are all Africans. Let's come together so that we can have a formidable force.
Our cultures interlink with one another.
And by standing together and embracing one another, you know, there's power in unity.
It is time to cut off this issue of xenophobia.
I stand for African unity. I stand for promoting unity in Africa because
there are many opportunities
to be whatever you want to be.
Africa is one of the most important continents.
Because if we can come together as one, we will be able to actually build a better Africa, the new Africa for the future.
And if we unite our hearts and our minds together and we go forward, we will conquer.
So let us all arise and be proudly African.
Being an African is who I am right now.
I'm proudly African. I love Africa.
Wishing you all a very happy Africa Month.
One love.
Time now for your sports news. Tributes are pouring in for former South African Football Association Technical Committee member and Bafana coach Ted Dumitru. The 76-year-old passed away yesterday after suffering a heart attack. Dumitru will be remembered for his success at club level as a coach with Kaizer Chiefs and Mamelodi Sundowns. In 2006, he joined Bafana, taking the team to the Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt. Now, the Nedbank Cup final takes place at the Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane tomorrow. SuperSport United and Orlando Pirates will battle it out for this last trophy on offer this season. Kickoff is set for 3 o'clock. A win in the Nedbank Cup final will not only give the winner a chance to salvage something from this season in terms of silverware, but it will also grant them an opportunity to play in the next continental showpiece, the CAF Confederation Cup. Well, unfortunately, we don't have the visuals there for you. Let's move on to our next story in rugby. South Africa's most successful Super Rugby franchise this season, the Lions, are quietly confident ahead of their Super Rugby clash against the Bulls on Saturday.
The Trans-Yokske Derby is always a special occasion for rugby fans on the Highveld, and this weekend's clash, a crucial encounter for both South African powerhouses, will be no different. The Lions are oozing confidence after their 54-24 victory over the Jaguars at home last weekend, but they are fully aware of how tough it will be to beat a very physical Bull side in their own backyard, especially since they have remained unbeaten in their fortress.
Going into the game, we obviously know it's just going to be a massive challenge against a quality side, but if whatever the result is, we'll recoup after that, after the break, and then take it forward. It's just another game, and I think it's more about the performance and the result that we're after.
The Lions have been consistent with giving their developing players some game time and have fielded almost a dozen new youngsters this season. But injuries to some key players have forced the Joburg outfit to make significant changes to their starting 15, with Sylvian Mahuza replacing Jaco van der Walt at fullback and Manus Boshoff in for Elton Yankees at fly half.
We've got full confidence in a guy like Sylvian. He's an exciting player, a guy who's won the Varsity Cup title under huge amounts of pressure. An exciting player, X-factor, can make something out of nothing. And of course Martinez, who's got huge experience. I mean, he's played in massive games, a lot of Super Rugby experience, played for the Barbarians, played for the Springboks. A different player, but a fantastic player.
This weekend, Super Rugby matches are the last before the competition resumes again in July after the incoming tours. Samantha Mari, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, more than 7,000 novices will be at the starting lineup of the 91st Comrades Marathon, the downhill run at Pietermaritzburg on Sunday. Now, first-time runners make up a third of the field of more than 19,000 competitors. That's an indication of the popularity of what is known now as South Africa's ultimate human challenge.
Atmosphere of nervousness and excitement at Durban's exhibition centre. It's where most runners pick up their race numbers. The time has come to put the months of training to the test. Even a down run remains a tough challenge.
Even you're running up run, same like, even you're running down run, same like up run, because a lot of hills,
I don't think it's really a down run, as they say, because just about half of it is a up run.
Work at the finish is almost complete, where tired runners will be welcomed home. Race organisers say everything is in place.
It's an amazing thing about Comrades. It's in a very strong space. It's in a very dominant space at the moment. It was in fact awarded the Discovery Sports Industry Award Sports Brand of the Year this year. And I think just the numbers of the novice runners, which is nearly 7,000, is indicative of that.
More than 6,000 volunteers, among them community marshals, will help make the marathon event a smooth one. In a new tradition, these special trophies will be handed to the winners, besides their 400,000 Rand prize. Renee Heine, SABC News, Durban.
Tennis now. Top seed Novak Djokovic eased his way into the third round of the French Open tennis tournament at Roland Garros in Paris, beating Steve Darcic in straight sets. Now, the Serb never looked troubled by his lowly ranked opponent from Belgium.
The 29-year-old Djokovic hardly built up a sweat in dispatching the unseeded Darcis. The 32-year-old Belgian made a fist of it in the first set, but once Djokovic found his rhythm, he was rarely troubled. Djokovic won the first set 7-5 and then raced through the second set 6-3. Darcis played better in the third set, forcing the world number one to step up a gear. The set went with serve until Djokovic made the decisive break in the seventh and then held serve to lead 5-3. Djokovic, who needs the French Open to complete the Grand Slam of all four majors, stayed patient and clinched the match on his fourth match point, 7-5, 6-3 and 6-4. The Serb will face Aljaž Bedin from Slovenia in the third round.
Step a little closer in straight sets against Steve Darcis.
And in other results, 9 times French Open champion Rafael Nadal had little trouble beating the Argentinian Facundo Bagnis, also in straight sets. The scoreline emphasized the dominance of Nadal, who is going for an unprecedented 10th title on the clay of Roland Garros. The former world number one player and holder of 14 Grand Slam titles raced through his match 6-3, 6-love and 6-3. Nadal will face the winner of the match between Nicolas Mahut and Marcel Granollers in round 3. Hannes Reineke, SABC News.
Let's take a short break and we'll be right back after that. That's your sports news.
News Today provide news updates giving a wealth of knowledge. Breaking stories and crossing live for you. We follow business developments intensely. Experts and analysts tackle all challenging issues for you. We cover stories locally and abroad to keep you informed. We cover all sporting codes just for you. We are sure to give you weather to be ready for the day. Stay tuned to News Today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
A little bit late than normal, but important economic news over the past week included in particular the revised economic growth figures by Statistics South Africa, who are using a new calculation method. The outcome has been that the South African economy grew slower than previously thought in the fourth quarter of 2015. Now, while the decline in the second quarter of 2015 was also deeper than initially estimated, then we must also note that prosecution's head, Sean Abrams, said earlier this week that the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, was off the hook and is not being investigated for espionage, which might suggest at least a temporary reprieve and a truce in the battle between the Hawks and the Finance Minister. And also, very importantly, as Friday, June the 3rd draws nearer, it is the day when Standard & Poor are expected to announce their key decision on whether South Africa is being downgraded to junk status or not. The debate on the outcome and the possible implications of that assessment is now hotting up. Now, for more on this, we earlier spoke to economist Professor Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University School of Business and Governance.
I think, Elvis, one must say, of course, as you indicated, those revised figures were in fact revised downward, but I don't think it makes very much difference to our forecasts for this year and for next year. Why? Well, because bygones are bygones. I mean, the growth you've lost, and the jobs you've lost, you've lost. So the question is, we must now look ahead. I think probably these revised figures indicate that the more pessimistic growth forecasts are more likely to be accurate. In other words, that for this year, as the Reserve Bank has indicated, they expect our growth to be something like 0.6%. But other forecasts are even lower. I personally think it might only be 0.3 or 0.2 for the year as a whole. Then next year, a little better. We hope that the drought will go away and a few other positive factors might kick in. So next year, we're looking at perhaps 1.3% and perhaps a little bit more the year thereafter. So I think that is really the growth scenario. So I wouldn't read too much into those revised figures. I'd simply say we've now got to be realistic about what we expect for growth this year and indeed next year.
Now, given the tepid world economic growth figures that we've seen and the lower commodity prices that we get as South Africa, how does South Africa generally compares with the growth league, so to speak, other emerging economies?
Well, if we take the most important price in our economy, which is the exchange rate, that's probably a very dominant one, our weakness there has been greater than quite a lot of the other developing countries, although we also get hit by the risk-averse movements that occur in the global economy. We always seem to fall a little bit further, and that's because of domestic factors. They sort of push us a little bit further. In terms of growth, we're at the bottom of the league at the moment. But let's look very quickly, for example, closer to home. In Africa, you have seen lately that Egypt has now displaced us as the second largest economy in Africa. I hope that's temporary, but nonetheless, we're now number 3 and not number 2, having being displaced by Nigeria earlier. And so those are new realities. Then in BRICS, I think, let me say immediately, the good news is, if you see it as good news, we're much better than Brazil. It's in a deep recession, -4% growth, great instability at the moment from a political point of view. So, and also Venezuela, which of course is really becoming a basket case. So compared with them, we are somewhat better. But the red lights have been flashing. They've been flashing in a way that tells us that if everything was okay, we wouldn't be talking about a rating downgrade now. So quite clearly, although we are not performing as well as we should in the so-called emerging market club, we should be doing much better.
How do we perform in the BRICS club?
Well, there I think we are not in the same league as either China or perhaps India, but more or less with, of course, Russia. I think our numbers look more or less the same, although the two economies are very different. But come back to my point, it is Brazil who is really the basket case as far as the BRICS club is concerned, not South Africa.
Now, next week, it's a turning point for South Africa. We're standing on the precipice of a downgrade. What is our chances of a downgrade, perhaps by Standard & Poor next week?
Well, this is quite an important call. You know that, of course, Moody's did indicate 2 weeks ago that they were not going to change our rating. They are seen as one of the more optimistic of the rating agencies. We now wait for, of course, Standard & Poor and for Fitch. We're not quite sure when the Fitch rating will come, but the Standard & Poor one is the one that's enjoying most of the attention, because both Standard & Poor and Fitch are just one level above junk status. So if they change their rating, then obviously we're in trouble. We then are indeed downgraded, and that's something we want to avoid. And we're obviously putting quite a lot of effort into trying to avoid it.
Now, research by Standard Bank suggests that a downgrade will usher in a recession in South Africa. Do you concur with that statement?
As I said earlier with the growth figures, we're on the brink of a recession where you need 2 quarters of negative growth. Well, we're on the edge of that. We might avoid it, although some people will say it doesn't really matter technically. It feels like a recession. but that aside, I think the risks of a recession have obviously have to be taken into account and will rise if indeed we are downgraded by Standard & Poor, because it will mean higher borrowing costs, a whole negative image, something which we want to avoid if we can. So quite clearly, this decision is really quite a crucial one.
By now, haven't the financial markets already priced in the risk of a downgrade for South Africa?
To some extent, the financial markets have done so, Elvis. That's true. They've half expected it. And I think that we must add to that even if we're downgraded to say a junk status, our banking system is really quite resilient. So, I mean, that's not a problem area. It's the real economy. It's what it will do to growth, to employment. And you will see that the Standard Bank has also said that on a worst-case scenario, we could lose 200,000 jobs. So I think we mustn't shrug our shoulders and say, oh, well, we'll ride this out. I think it's fine. You and I can ride this out. But there are thousands of people out there who will either lose jobs or not get jobs if we can't turn this, return the situation around after whatever we hear next week.
Professor, what do you see as the major determinants or criteria that will swing or influence a credit rating agency like Standard & Poor about South Africa? Are these purely economic factors that they factor in, or are there political matters at stake here?
Well, let me just tick off what are the economic factors. They obviously look at your public finances. They don't want South Africa to fall into a debt trap. And so that's quite important, and the last budget made a very serious effort to avoid that, and the Minister of Finance has been putting that strong message to them in his own meetings with them. I think they also look at the growth prospects. They want to know, can you do better than 0.5%? Can you get to 2 and 3%? Because that will solve certain other problems as well. They look at labour stability as quite important, and they also look at policy uncertainty. That's been a great bugbear, and you've noticed that the words policy uncertainty have occurred in several of the reports so far, which we've had from the credit rating agencies. Standard & Poor have warned us. They said we don't like the political noise, as they put it, in South Africa, whether it's the Provan Gordon issue or certain other issues, which will count in whatever decision they take in the next few days. They started off originally being very technical a few years ago, just looking at the public finances, debt ratios and so forth. But today you find that the credit rating agencies look at issues of governance. How well is the country being governed? Because that tells them whether the promises being made can be implemented, whether it will happen. So that is part of their evaluation and indeed of their scenario.
The NPA came out this week and stating strongly that they are not investigating the finance minister. Is that perhaps some certainty that's being left for the ratings agencies?
Well, I think that would be reassuring. I think that the jury's still out, if I can use those words, as to what might happen, but at least there have been some reassurances. It's just that for South Africa, in its particular circumstances at this point, we really must try and project an image of stability around the national treasury, around our finances. So we really don't want any disturbances on that front, while South Africa is grappling with some much bigger issues.
Finally, and very briefly, if you are a betting man, where would you put your money on for Standard & Poor's, our rating downgrade next week, or perhaps leave it as is?
Elvis, I'm not a betting man, I'm an economist. What I will say is, a few months ago, I would have said 60-40, we will be downgraded. That's early in the year, but there have been some really positive things happening. You know, we've got rid of load shedding for the time being. There's been a relative period of label stability. We've had a reasonably good budget. So that's on the positive side. So I would say it's 50-50 as to what will happen next week. It's an even chance which way it will go, as far as indeed Standard & Poor are concerned.
Final thought.
I would say the next few weeks for South Africans, all indeed leadership in South Africa, it's a time for strong nerves and indeed cool heads. And whatever happens next week, we must have a plan B. That's what the nation expects.
That was not a betting man, an economist. Professor Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University School of Business and Governments in our weekly slot of The Economy. But for more now on news and what's happening in the world of social media, let's find out from Renee.
And thank you very much, Elvis, and you're quite right. It is that time of the week again when we take a look at the hot topics that have been trending on social media during the week. In local news, some of the biggest stories was the NPA boss advocate Shaun Abrahams has announced that the NPA will seek leave to appeal the court ruling that charges must be reinstated against President Jacob Zuma. Then the Red Ants and evictions in Hammanskraal also took a lead, followed by the run-up to the Comrades Marathon, which of course begins this weekend. And in international news, the US presidential elections are still sitting at the most spoken about topic there, followed by the Cannes Film Festivals and Bill Cosby. Now joining me in studio is Managing Director of Roy Africa, Tanya Khoury. A very good morning to you, Tanya. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Renee. Lovely to be here.
Now, what is happening about some of the hot topics this week?
Well, the NPA has been a big focus, not only in social media, but also in news media here in South Africa. In fact, we always see President Jacob Zuma as the largest story in social media, and it's been that way for a very long time. But the NPA is the biggest story this week in social media, and for various reasons. Like you mentioned, we had Shaun Abrahams, we also had the Marius Fransman story as well, and also the spy tape. So what you're looking at on the charts now is the NPA news media coming in at 12.53%, making it the second largest story in our news charts this week. And then, there's been big entries by with the Red Ants and the Hammanskraal story.
Very big news this week. And of course, Standard Bank, their 300 million rand fraud.
You know, Renee, I saw something interesting on social media. They said someone broke into Standard Bank without a balaclava or a shotgun and took 300 million in a foreign country, and that's exactly what happened. I think people were astonished by that story, but it was short-lived. I mean, social media jumped on it at the time, and then it disappeared. So that comes in at I think it was about 2% on our news media charts. Yeah, 2.47%, and roughly the same in social media. But what a story!
It is, and of course I see here a little bit on a lighter note for all the The music fans, I see Iron Maiden is going to be in South Africa.
Iron Maiden actually did so well on the ROI charts. I was astonished. I didn't realize there's that many metalheads out there.
No, I think South Africa, we have a lot of fans.
So, yeah, there were pictures of the plane and excited fans looking forward to the concert. In fact, last week, it came in at about 3% of our social media activity. So that's pretty big,
Yeah, a lot of people tweeting about that. Then, of course, Comrades Marathon is taking place this weekend.
Yes.
What are people saying about it? Are they excited?
I'm clapping and smiling and from the safety of my sofa. So good luck to all of you out there, but I won't be anywhere near the Comrades Marathon. Very big story. It always is, the Comrades.
Everybody loves to watch that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I came in at a good, it's already trending at about 2% of our charts, and we imagine that's going to obviously pick up over the weekend.
Of course. And do you think we'll see also some people are now using, you know, their phones to take videos and their GoPros and things? Do you think we're going to see that kind of footage pop up on social media as well?
Hasn't the Comrades Marathon changed, right?
Exactly.
Their activity, their PR activity is going to be very interesting to watch because it's a whole different ball game. I mean, back to the days we relied on TV transmission and that was it. But now it's live, it's personal, it carries its own little hashtags and messages of encouragement. So yes, I think you're definitely going to see that. In fact, I'd be surprised if you didn't.
So I think if we take a look at some of the news internationally, I see Hillary Clinton is almost par with Donald Trump this time round.
You know, this morning I was saying, how did we go from a reality TV show to reality? I mean, Donald Trump and The Apprentice was where we started, and look where we are now. You know, so Donald Trump coming in as the biggest story this week with the Republican nominations, and Hillary Clinton shortly behind. But I think that's also in reference to the Donald Trump story. But we've got some really big entries into the charts this week. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard have split
of course,
up.
Always the gossip there.
Yes, and all the girls are saying, finally, he's coming for me. I'm not so sure about that. And then, of course, Bill Cosby was also a big story this week.
See, a lot of people are quite angered and quite shocked by that case, actually, all these claims coming out, over 50 women claiming. But he is going to go to trial, so I've seen in the media, and he could be facing, what, 30 years?
Yeah, and there's been part admissions on his part as well about the using the drugs and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. And, yeah, one of my biggest disappointments, both in news media and social media and also international media, is, again, the lack of African news. Africa Day 2016.
It was very small.
It was so tiny, and there were so many beautiful images floating about. I mean, I spoke this morning about people don't even know that we have an AU anthem. We have an African anthem. People don't even know about that. So, again, African news paying second fiddle to some other international stories that probably shouldn't have got as much attention as they did.
Well, thank you very much, Tonya. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I'm sure we could talk a lot more about all the trends that happened this week. Big news. But thank you very much for being with us today.
You're so welcome.
Of course, that is Managing Director of Roy Africa, Tonya Khoury, telling us all about the social media trends. But it's over to Phil for the weather.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, let's take a look at what's going on. First of all, we take a look at southern Africa, and here we're seeing isolated showers over South Africa's far northeastern areas. This, of course, includes parts of the Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces there. We're also expecting that rainfall to extend towards Zimbabwe and towards, of course, the coastal areas and the interior of Mozambique along that eastern shoreline there. Throughout the rest of South Africa and indeed the rest of southern Africa, a clear day forecast. It's going to be a beautiful one there. And we're going to see that continuing into tomorrow. In fact, largely a lot more clear into tomorrow. No more rainfall forecast throughout South Africa or indeed throughout Zimbabwe there, but we are going to see just a little bit of that residual rainfall forecast in the southern part of Mozambique. Let's take a look at your temperatures. In relation to that, what we're seeing is just a little bit lower temperatures around that northeastern area there, 21 degrees in Pretoria, getting a little bit warmer towards the coastal areas, especially along South Africa's eastern coastline there, 25 degrees, and of course Bloemfontein there at about 19. If we take a look towards the southern coastline there, 21 degree high forecast for Cape Town. It is going to be a sunny one forecast for that region. All of that higher level cloud cover should have moved away by now. And what we're going to see moving further north is that higher level cloud cover in association with lower and mid-level cloud cover coming in towards that central region and indeed moving through Central Africa's northern regions too, causing showers and thunder showers throughout the day. As we take a look into tomorrow, we're going to see those showers in general moving further and further north, especially through the interior there. Congo-Brazzaville expecting just a partly cloudy day for today, just missing out that rainfall for today as well as most of tomorrow. Might just get a little bit of drizzle there though. What we're seeing in terms of your temperatures is Luanda peaking at about 29 degrees. As we were saying, that rainfall really concentrated further north. Kinshasa, a dry one there, 34-degree maximums there. As you can see, maximums extending all the way throughout that northern part up into the 30s. Bangui at 37 degrees Celsius. Lots of cloud cover to be seen there. That all changes though as we move, of course, towards North Africa. Those Central African stormy systems still just affecting parts, but we're going to see that extending towards Sanaa and, of course, other areas around that. But what we are going to see is higher pressure systems generally dominating that interior, and into tomorrow, going to see very similar conditions. No rainfall whatsoever over this entire interior region. You can see a very strong higher pressure system forecast for that region. Also expecting a dry and a hot one all the way throughout the Middle East there. Damascus at 26 degrees. Baghdad's at 29, expecting just a little bit of rainfall there. A little bit of cloud cover coming into the area as well, with Mecca peaking at 42 degrees. Take a look at how hot it is in the interior though. Temperatures rising well into the 40s all the way throughout that interior region of North Africa. And as we move through towards the western parts, we're going to see very similar conditions, although a little bit more cloud covers forecast for most of these areas. We're going to see some of that cloud cover yielding rainfall along that south-western coastline there, and moving along the southern coastline. Into tomorrow, that southwestern coastline once again getting quite a bit of rainfall forecast for the area. As you can see, a lot of cloud cover forecast, but also a lot of sunny skies there. Niamey and Bamako expecting only partly cloudy skies, and that means just a little bit of cloud cover, mostly mid-level and higher level as well, so you're going to still see a lot of sunshine. Now, this is where we're going to leave it for now, but do contact us. We're at sabc.co.za is our email address. Alternatively, give us a call, 011-714-5077 for your feedback. That's it from me for now. Stay tuned.
One other person has been shot dead and another is in a critical condition in hospital.
The CRL has laid charges against controversial televangelist Paseka Mutsoneng.
More than 1.3 million South Africans have been added in the past two registration weekends.
The International Monetary Fund warns that policy uncertainty could dampen economic growth in South Africa.
And all eyes are on the new Bok coach, Alistair Coetzee, his challenge to keep everyone in the country happy.
To be African is beautiful. To be African is a privilege.
It represents hard work. It represents being able to stand on your own.
And respecting other cultures as well.
It's about promoting African heritage.
We are all Africans. Let's come together so that we can have a formidable force.
Our cultures interlink with one another.
And by standing together and embracing one another, you know, there's power in unity.
It is time to cut off this issue of xenophobia.
I stand for African unity. I stand for promoting unity in Africa because
there are many opportunities
to be whatever you want to be.
Africa is one of the most important continents.
Because if we can come together as one, we will be able to actually build a better Africa, the new Africa for the future.
And if we unite our hearts and our minds together and we go forward, we will conquer.
So let us all arise and be proudly African.
Being an African is who I am right now.
I'm proudly African. I love Africa.
Wishing you all a very happy Africa Month.
One love.
It's Friday, the 27th of May, 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News on Channel 404 Jumbo Africa. And a very warm welcome to the final hour. As you know, we're broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis President. Renee Vest will be with you shortly. We'll be with you until 12 o'clock. We're also streaming live on YouTube, with the entire show now available on our YouTube channel. Today we focus on blessers and blessies, and the question we pose to you is, what is your perception about the phenomenon of the blessers and blessies? You can send us your comments on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines with Renee Vest.
The ANC's battle plan to retain control of most of the country's municipalities will come under scrutiny today when the party finalises its candidates list for the August 3rd local elections. The situation remains tense at Lebode in Eastern Cape after a taxi driver was gunned down, allegedly in taxi-related violence. And the bail application of Christopher Panayiotou will continue in the Port Elizabeth Magistrates Court today. We'll be giving you that news shortly, but Elvis has your sports headlines.
Let's take a look at those sports headlines. Now, tributes are pouring in. The former South African Football Association Technical Committee member and Bafana coach, Ted Dumitru. The 2015-16 Nedbank Cup final takes place at the Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane tomorrow. And South Africa's most successful Super Rugby franchise this season, the Lions, are quietly confident ahead of their Super Rugby clash against the Bulls on Saturday. Those are all your headlines in the sports news. We'll come back a little bit later for more, but let's go over to Renee for your news.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Now, the ANC's battle plan to retain control most of the country's municipalities will come under scrutiny today when the party finalises its candidates list for the August 3rd local elections. Party leaders will meet in Irene, north of Pretoria, to select mayor and councillor candidates for the poll. The ANC is facing what is expected to be a fierce electoral battle with the opposition, Democratic Alliance and EFF, eyeing to take control of metro councils run by the ANC. The ruling party has been running against time to finalise the candidates list. Factional battles have led to violent clashes, even political killings, as members squabble over who should make it to the final list. The party recommended 3 names to communities, leaving it to them for final decision. It will be the first time that the ANC announces mayoral candidates for metros and district municipalities ahead of the elections. The extended National Executive Committee meeting is expected to receive the report on the much-talked-about state capture. Right, let's go over to Elvis with more on that story.
That's right, Renee. Our reporter, Eldon Sampier, now joins us to take the story forward. It's an interesting take on the story and interesting time of the year to do that. So that particular meeting, the National Executive Committee meeting, how important is that for the ANC?
Well, it's a very important meeting for the ANC. First of all, it's first the list conference, which ends today, Friday being Friday, and we're expecting a press conference from the ANC to give us some of the details that came out of that list conference. And then immediately after that, that's when the NEC meeting then starts. And the role of the NEC is really to endorse some of the names, or where they see that something worth disputing, that they can raise these issues and be referred back to the different regions and then confirm all the names. And what we should also remember is that the ANC is running against a really tight deadline because they have to submit these names to the IEC. And if I'm not mistaken, the deadline is sometime next week where all the candidates will be running for the elections. Their names have to be known by the IEC.
Can we expect some interesting names to pop out of that list?
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what will happen with the outcomes of the list conference, because specifically looking at what has been happening in KZN with all the infighting that has also led to killings, the Northwest as well as the Northern Cape, where we've seen ANC members protesting outside their regional and provincial offices, disputing the outcomes of their provincial list conferences, and the accusations that the ANC has been, or the mother body as well as the provincial bodies, imposing names on the different regions. So we'll have to wait and see what the outcome there is. But I see there's a story this morning where it indicates that the mayor of Tshwane, the current mayor of Tshwane, Jose Ramokgopa, might not be available, might not come back rather as the mayor of the city of Tshwane. But what's interesting about this story, and looking back at the press conference delivered by Mantashe earlier this week when he was explaining the list conference, is that in cases like, let's say for instance now, something like this, where the region has decided that they don't want this person to come back as the mayor of that particular region, what they can do is that the NEC can dispute that, because every mayor has a mandatory two terms that they have to serve as the mayor of the certain region.
Now, apparently this is the first time that the ANC is doing this before the elections, where the people can actually look at the list and say, listen, we agree or disagree. Why is that so important for the ruling party?
I think what the ANC has done really great compared to what other political parties have done is that with the ANC's nomination of different candidates is when it starts at a local level where community members are given a list of names. Those people are then nominated, and those community members at different meetings then decide which person they would want to see elected. And these don't have to be necessarily ANC members. They can be different ordinary members of the public in the communities and say that this is the person that I would want to see become the mayor of, or rather see become the councillor of my ward specifically. And now we see the ANC coming out and saying that for the first time we'll be announcing who the mayoral candidates will be, which is something that the ANC has never done before. And it seems to emphasize the importance or how crucial the ANC sees these elections to be, considering that we have all the different metros that opposition parties are trying to gun for.
So this seems to be like an inclusive participative process where you include the communities to talk to the ruling party. So running up to that, this particular list conference, which will be later today, what else can we expect to come out of that?
Well, because this is the final arbiter when it comes to the list conferences, of course, there have different appeals that could have been made running up to these elections, or rather the confirmation of the list. This is also the final place where those who have grievances can list those grievances or make a complaint to the ANC and wanting those names to be overturned or want new candidates to be put in.
Eldrin, thank you so much for your time and joining us in studio.
Thank you.
That was our reporter, Eldrin St. Pierre, giving us an update. You will be on the lookout for the list conference and, of course, the media conference that will come out of that one. But right now, the executors of the late former president, Nelson Mandela's estate, will be distributing the cash bequest in accordance to his will. Now, this is the first step towards fulfilling the wishes stipulated in Mandela's will. The winding up of the estate is yet to be completed. Let's go there live.
2002 through to 2010. So the last time Madiba was in this building was actually in this very room. When he walked out of here, he walked out slowly on his stick, and little did we know that that was the last time we saw him, because a few weeks later then his health took a knock. And for us, it's a significant room that you're sitting in at the moment. With those few words, I want to welcome Justice Dikgang Moseneke, Advocate George Bezos, and Judge Themba Sangoni, who's not here with us today, the Mandela family, the Mashel family, and former staff members who are here, and all of you, members of the media. With those few words, I would like to ask Justice Dikgang Moseneke to come and address us.
The Mandela family, the Mashel family, indeed Baba George Bezos, my fellow executor, Mr. Michele Dwaba, our attorney, both you, Dion and Leandra, our attorneys, and Kilabkhile, It's wonderful to see you here, because you are the extension of our hands in trying to do this task at hand. And I'd like to welcome members of the media who are here, and all of you who have come out here. Mr. Mandela was a public figure. It is not usual that distribution of legacies is done publicly. But Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela is Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. And he stands in a stature of his own, and his will has a public element and a private element. And all of those who lived around him and who worked and supported him, institutions and schools that were there that molded him, he remembered to give a small legacy as a sign of his gratitude. And all of the people who worked around him, he did much the same way. And it's for that reason that it is important to tell our nation that we have come to the end of our task, that we have done as he asked. I often talk about how he said to Kang, will you look after me when I'm no longer in this land? And I didn't quite understand what that meant, because I saw him so often. And he went off with Tata Bezos, made a will, and later told me, this is what I want you to do when I'm not here. And you can imagine your heart starts beating quite fast, because such an enormous task to have a man of his level of sacrifice and commitment to ask you to perform a task. So in many ways, we're here also to celebrate, to acknowledge that we went out to do what he wanted in his will, and we've accomplished that. And today, we are happy to say that the will is solvent. And I can do this best by reading a small media release, after which I'm going to invite Baba Bezos to come and say a few words, and we're going to go on with the business of the day, which essentially is to give out checks to those who are here present, and we'll have a later session with the family where we'll do pretty much the same thing. The accounts, of course, have been lying for inspection in the last 21 days. So this is a very public process. And if you want to know and see what Mr. Mandela had in his lifetime, there's an L&D account, liquidation and distribution account, which lists his assets and lists his liabilities and lists his beneficiaries and what would be gotten by who. At the onset of the administration of the estate, the executors advised that they are in favor of full transparency in winding up of the estate, and then we echoed our desire to achieve an optimum reconciliation between the objective of transparency combined with the objective of efficiency in the administration of the estate. We as executors are pleased to announce that we have reached a very advanced stage in the administration of the estate, where we have identified and collated all local and offshore assets and liabilities belonging to the former President of the Republic, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, and we have complied with the relevant statutory duties in terms of the Administration of Estates Act of 1965. As part of our statutory duties in terms of the Act, we have prepared and lodged with the Master of the High Court a first liquidation and distribution account in the estate. We are pleased to inform the public at large that The account has been approved by the Master of the High Court, and in terms of the provisions of Section 35 of the Act, would have lain free from objection by the 27th of May 2006. In other words, nobody came and raised their hand and said, I object for one reason or the other. On Friday, the 27th of May 2016, we, the executors of the state, will forthwith distribute the cash bequests amongst the heirs in accordance with the account and the last will and testament of President Rolihlahla Mandela. After distribution of the cash bequests, we executors will attend to the transfer of movable and immovable properties into the names of the heirs, will pay creditors of the estates and lodge with the master the receipts and acquittances of the creditors and heirs. We will furthermore, we editors, provide the master with the necessary conveyancing certificates or deeds of registration once transfer of the immovable property has been effected. We are delighted to inform you all that no assets of the deceased have been sold in order to pay the bequests and to discharge estate liabilities and costs. In short, the estate was sufficiently liquid to meet the wishes of the testator, Mr. Mandela. We executors wish to point out that the deceased's home, situated in Qunu, and the movable assets thereon, which include obviously cattle and other farming implements, have been left out of the account. We anticipate preparing and lodging with the master a second and final liquidation and distribution account after dealing with the Qunu home together with its movable assets once the dispute between the executors and Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela has been resolved. That is all that I would like to convey at this stage, and would like to have just a final word. And despite all the speculations we found and seen so often in the media, there was no fight within the family. The family was united. They gave us support and something that was totally befitting the stature and the love, the stature of Mr. Mandela, and the love they owed to him and the love he had for all of the family. Much of the assets will be transferred to trusts that will continue to look after the family and long after now. So I'd like to just also take this time to lay to rest the suggestions that there's going to be big rancor and fight. And for me personally, I've received nothing but continual support, and I admire all of you for having been so patient and so supportive in these circumstances, and to the discredit of all the suggestions that you're going to be on each other's throats. It never happened. I thank you. I should have said Baba George.
If you don't mind, you will not stand as a man of 88 with a stick. Nelson Mandela and I met in 1948. That's a long time ago at the university. Friends at the university. He and Oliver Tambo became the first attorney years later a member of the Johannesburg Bar.
Well, that is the executors of the late former president, Nelson Mandela, and his estate. Of course, they will be distributing the cash bequest, as you heard there earlier, in accordance with his will. Now, we're trying to just secure the sound there for you because it seems like there's a small technical problem. But let's go back to the executors of the late former president, Nelson Mandela.
And he couldn't go to a funeral where he didn't have the benefit of speaking to his children and see them growing up. Oh, can you all hear me, by the way? You still need it. I was nominated by him as a prisoner, as he's a lawyer, and the members of the family, and particularly Winnie, was very good in finding reasons why I should visit Nelson in prison. It was a very difficult thing for him to be separated from the family, not to be able to see the children or grandchildren. But I went from time to time and gave him reports of how they get on at school, what subjects they were to take, what ambition they had, particularly one of them to become a lawyer. And our friendship was described by Nelson in his Long Walk to Freedom, that I became not only a good friend, but I also became Uncle George to the children. It was difficult, but he nevertheless carried on, as we all know, representing the people of South Africa despite the punishment that was meted out to him. I became his agent in the late 80s to visit Oliver Tambo in Zambia and London in order to inform Oliver of what these secret discussions between the apartheid government and Nelson Mandela and his fellow prisoners, Walter Sisulu, Govan Mbeki, and others. It was a friendship which I valued and still value. We represented him after his release. We worked on his will, and he chose the deputy president. We still that for us. And Judge Sangoni, Nelson, spent time with me, with our families. We went to Greece together with Mrs. Michelle, Nelson, my wife, and I. And he always had a sense of humor. He said this to my mother-in-law, whom I was taking home after she had lunch at our house. Left her in the car outside the Houghton entrance to the house and went to give Nelson a piece of paper that I had prepared at his request. He wanted to read it. He accompanied me to the car. And there he saw my mother-in-law, who he knew. And he shouted at her, "What sort of a mother are you that allowed your daughter to marry a man like this who leaves you in the car?" And he didn't laugh at his jokes. But my mother-in-law assured him she didn't suffer waiting in the car. But we became friends right to the end. I am proud to have been a friend of such a great man. I have a complaint against myself and possibly members of the family, that there are members of the family that I haven't yet met. And I'm hoping that that changes. Nelson Mandela wanted during his life and after his life that I should associate myself with the members of the family. I'm still prepared to do it, and I wish that we take opportunities like this one in order to become friends. Thank you very much.
Baba, thank you. I should have warned everybody that you're the best storyteller in South Africa. Dr. George walks up to me and says, "Dikgang," and we're doing the trial of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela together. He says, "Dikgang, can I tell you a Greek story?" And I say, "Yes, Baba." He says, "Well, in Greece, when you want to buy a donkey, you circulate the rumor that you want to sell a donkey." And everybody would come and make an offer to you to try and buy the donkey that you say you want to sell. And you are the better for it. Because then you can go out there knowing exactly what is the right asking price for the donkey. Now, he tells this church all the time, and he used to tell them between us, no tata. The last little thing I have to say just before we distribute the money, I wanted to single out specific people who we work closely with as executives, starting with Mama Grasha Michelle, who gave us her complete support and cooperation throughout the process. I know she's in Maputo. She had to attend an unveiling. Otherwise, she would have been here. Your elder sister, Umagaziwe Mandela, has been a tower of strength. She has been there supporting. Everybody said, I'm going to fight with Mikey within 10 minutes. It doesn't happen in 24 months. So your aunt was great, guys, and we went along very well. And both Zenani, I talked to her only yesterday, all the way from Argentina, Her Excellency, I talked to her, and Her Excellency Sinzi. I also talked to her very recently, and I went to see her in hospital, and I hope she gets better soon. So I'd like to single those out because we work so closely, and we got, and them got most and all of you to cooperate. I thought I just want to add that acknowledgement. We've come to the point where we're going to give out the checks that we have with us, and those who are not here, obviously, we're going to pay the money electronically. And I'm going to invite Tenile Dwaba to call out the people concerned.
Thank you. I don't think the mic is working. It's fine. The first person is Mr. Michael Maponya, if he's around.
Maramapwe, those who know the family and the house and Utata know that wherever he was, you were always there. And look, he is very thankful. And sure, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. Mr. Maponya was Tata's driver and looked after him for all the years from the time he came out of prison.
The next person is Ms. Sarah Mabuela. Is she around? She doesn't seem to be around. Then if I can then ask Ms. Albertina Dima if she is around. Okay, if she's not around, can we ask the person who has been requested to represent Clarke Institution? Clarke Institution? Or Clarkeberry?
It's
Clarkeberry Senior Secondary School.
It's Clarkeberry.
Sorry.
Thank you for coming again and seeing again. So, thank you so much. Do you want to say something quickly? From Clarkeberry, you just across here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, then if we can ask somebody who is here to represent Fort Hare University to come forward.
Thank you. Good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Very well.
Just a little bit for Fort Hare. Want to say a word or two? Yes, you're welcome. But you can only speak if you promise me that I'll get this blazer somehow.
You will get one. To the Mandela family, we, on behalf of the University of Fort Hare, I'm Ayandam Chekula. I am the Deputy Chair of Council. The University of Fort Hare feels particularly honored to be a recipient of this bequest, not because of the monetary value of the bequest, because the issues are too enormous to be satisfied by the bequest. And I don't believe that President Mandela intended to even address the financial challenges of the university. But the symbolism lies in the fact that he has made the bequest, and it symbolizes his love for education and his hopes for the University of Fort Hare, where he was an alumnus. we take that challenge seriously. And I think this award is also timeless. And the message that accompanies also timeless, because Forte is celebrating 100 years of existence. And it is the beginning of the next century for the university. And on behalf of the university, we actually accept the challenge of this bequest to uphold the legacy of Forte and to fulfill the promise of education in this country. Thank you.
Then the next person is Albert Ndlovu.
Mina Ndlovu, siyabonga mntakithi. Ya, ufuna ukukhuluma. Ufuna ukukhuluma. Siyabonga ngendlela ubuphatha ubaba ngakhona, eh? Okay, Nkosi kakhulu.
Then if we can ask somebody who is here for Tunu Secondary School.
Mola Mshakazi. Nanto kwakho there. You want to say a few things? No, you prefer not to say anything. Okay, Nkosi kakhulu.
If we can then ask somebody who represents Orlando West High School.
We'll have to make a token envelope and call them anyway. Good morning to you, sir.
Morning.
How are you?
Finally.
Thank you for coming. Here is a token, the bequest from Tata. Do you want to say a few words? You're welcome to if you want to.
Okay. Morning, everybody. I'm Mr. Malindi, the principal of Orlando West High School. I want to thank everybody who's here and also the executor for the what Orlando West have received. We thank them very much, and also want also to pass this gratitude and thanks to the family, Nelson Mandela family, Nelson Mandela Foundation. We say thank you as Orlando West High School. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Then the last is somebody who's here to represent University of the Witwatersrand.
No, it's fine. TVC, siyabonga mntakithi, yeah, you must say a few words. Can you speak? Yes. You're live. You're on television live, so you go for it.
I'm not as eloquent as my boss. I'm just a scientist. Members of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, trustees, members of the Mandela family. I am Zebulon Vlagazi. I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Postgraduate Affairs of the University of Witwatersrand. His next formative school, where he was shaped and met some of the distinguished people, including Baba Pizos and many others. However, and I'm delighted that I've spoken just after great speech by my brother from the University of Forte, whom I'd like to congratulate, by the way, on the 100 years of achievement. I'm not an alumnus of this great university, but I feel I'm also an alumnus of it. It belongs to us all. And I'd like to congratulate you on that. And, of course, for giving us Nelson Mandela, after having shaped him from when he was walking up the hills of Kunu to now moving around the hills of Johannesburg. And I think it's a great achievement and a great legacy to both these great, illustrious towers of knowledge and wisdom that we need to bequeath for the next generation. I'm sure that this token of appreciation from Mr. Mandela will go a long way in sending out a symbolic message of the value of higher education, what it means for this generation and the generations going forward. I thank you all. Thank you very much.
We believe that two of the other people we've called earlier have just arrived. So if I can invite Miss Albertina Dima to come forward.
Sabona mama. Yaphila. Anakhuluma. If you look after that for so long, I was often ukukhuluma one way nje. Usho ukuthi yourself. Yourself. Okay.
I will say thank you.
You want to say thank you only?
Yeah.
Well, I should thank you.
Okay. Just want to say thank you for what the Tata left for me. And this is a privilege working for Mr. Mandela. And then I don't have more to say because I'm so stressed where I am. I'm scared. I don't know why. Thank you.
And then we'll ask Mama Sarah Mabuela to come forward.
Sabona nkosazana. Dumela mma le kae? No ke siame. Le wena o siama ke? Mme ga o tshabe go bua wena ke? Go tlo go bua ke? Lebile mo televisioneng live so kana ba go lebeletse go gae. Re bontshe gore o motho o leboge sentle ba bolelle gore no direlang tata and le gore ikutlwa yang ka bonnyane bo re go neelang bona.
I don't have any words to say. I just want to say thank you. Being here brings back memories. So thank you, Tata. Thanks for everything.
That, ladies and gentlemen, I think brings us to the end of this part. As I say, that was a token distribution. By far, the bulk of the legacy and the cash bequests will be paid up. Will be paid out electronically, and we will be getting on with that process. And it will include Ms. Zelda Lechransi, who is aware and alive of this day, and has preferred to have her bequest paid electronically. But so too many others whose names I could mention now. And thank you for coming. I'm going to call Tate. I'm going to call Tate Hatang if he wants to say anything in closure, but before I call him to do so, and we do so only because tradition requires, it's your home, and so when we leave after using it, you must have the last word. But let me say my small piece just before then. Oh, I see. Yeah, they could ask, yeah, sure. Oh, Q&A, ne? Okay, I'll suggest my last remark and then do the Q&A. He insists that you'd like to have a Q&A for the media. I thought we were done. Now, we judges, you know how it goes in court. When you finish, court adjourns, you don't get asked questions. Now, he says we must submit to questions, and I defer to that. I really do. But my parting shot in this regard, and about this in particular, is we as a nation, we need all our heroes to help us in the long journey. We need to keep them intact, and we need to recall them when the going gets tough. Now, heroes are like bright beacons that help lit up the way for nations and for people. And nations without heroes are bound to flounder. And everything gets reduced to the least and not the most. Besides the privilege of being able to serve Tata when he's passed on, even more importantly, today was really about remembering that beckoning beacon that says there's greatness amongst us and we must strive for that greatness. And I just want to kill one little shibboleth. Nelson Mandela has not sold out. And many leaders in the struggle of his generation did not sell out. They set for us a goal that is encapsulated by our Constitution. And those goals we must continue to pursue relentlessly. Let me make the point in short. When you choose to have a trip to Mthatha and you get a puncture or two on the way, and let's assume the trip to Mthatha is a valuable trip to make. The fact that you've got a puncture or two or the car overboils, it doesn't make the trip a bad destination. So the trip of our nation to be a good nation, inclusive, democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and that shares its prosperity amongst all its people, it's a trip that we still have to undertake. And that's a trip that our leaders started. So the fact that there are a few wobbles on the way, there are potholes, and we get a puncture or two, doesn't explain to us whether the goal is a good one. The goal remains good. And that's a goal that leaders like Utatu Mandela have set. And we have a duty to follow and pursue that goal, despite the occasional wobbles on the road. But I thank you for coming, and I'm going to hand over to Sillo.
Thank you very much. Since I'm not a judge, the one that just got retired 4 days ago, I thought you were not going to forgive me if you don't get to ask him questions, right? So rather, let me just give you that opportunity. We're going to take about maybe 3 at a go. If you can please say who you are, from which agency, then we can manage the process smoothly. Are there any questions from you? Sophie?
Sophie Mkwena from the SABC. I don't know whether Ntate Hatang or Ntate Museneke or Ntate Pizos will be able to answer this one. Pertaining the grave at the house, there were reports that at some point in time, arrangements will be made that members of the public can visit the grave. In July, it's Madiba's birthday again, but also the International Day. Are we likely to see that happening very soon?
Okay, can I have the second question?
Michelle Kumete from Bloomberg News. My question is, of the total distributions of today, what is the total balance? What is the total figure of all the monies that were given out today?
Okay, last one for this round. Okay, you can go, Justice.
Okay, I'll answer the first question, and I'll give over to Mijali Dwaba, who'll add up the totals very quickly and tell you exactly how much of all the amount we'll be paying. That will be done quite quickly. Well, you're talking about essentially phase 2, Memquin. Our duty remains, and there is residue in the estate to be able to do that, to consult with the family quite tightly, and to set out a structure that will be responsible for the public access to the resting place, Lagatata, and that inevitably will also involve the state. So, in my language, I would call it a shrine, and it's something that we will get on with. Up to now, there's been a process of just maintaining the gravesite, but this would entail more extended constructions, obviously parking areas, and what would be the most effective symbolism for what data means to us, and which would be the optimal ways to give public access. But that is something that must start with the family, in conjunction clearly with our government, so that we have an inclusive arrangement. And we hope by July would have made progress to get to that point. Do you want to add that?
As executors and as friends, we are very keen that not only the house in Harlem nearby, not only the offices of Mandela and Tambo in the city, not only Kulu, remain open places to honor the heritage of Nelson Mandela. We are appealing to the state and big business, young people, to help us make everything that belonged to Nelson Mandela becomes a heritage site in the country. We are working on it. We are making some progress. I would appeal to all the people here, and particularly the media, to actually help us in really not allowing anything that belonged to Nelson Mandela to be forgotten. Thank you.
On the question about the total cash bequest in terms of the world, it's we didn't do the exact round off, but it's approximately 22 million rands.
Are there any other questions? In the absence of questions, I'd like to thank you very much for coming today, and just say that Ndate Mseneke reminded us that the greatest gift that Madiba gave us, the greatest gift that Robert Sobukwe gave us, Ndate Biko, and Rumlange Nikathrada, Lillian Ngoy gave us, is the values that they said we should be living by, and I think that's one of the things that we look up to you in your retirement, to say you'll continue to help us with that as we build our country. So I want to thank you very much for continuing to do the work that you do. On behalf of the foundation, to congratulate you also for the 14 years of service that you've given to the nation, and the 45 more years that you're going to give.
No remission, 15 years, sorry.
15 years that you get. For the 15 years, and the 15 more, and in multiples that you're going to continue to give ahead. Thank you very much. To the executors, Ndati Khamuseneke, Advocate George Bizos, Judge Sangoni in his absence, Ndati Dwaba, and the attorneys here present, we want to thank all of you, the Mandela family, the Mashel family, thank you very much for coming through, and all the beneficiaries who made it, the media, thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much.
Why are electoral systems important in a democracy?
We think of democracy as voting people into office. The other side of the coin is that we would be more empowered and more accountable in politics if we could do the opposite, is vote them out when they don't deliver.
Politics is about who gets what, when and how.
If you look up on the internet as to how the head of state is chosen, it says monarchy.
We should not refer to an election as a contest.
So we should not shy away from the fact that an election is a contest. Of course, I do admit that it's not a bloody contest. It shouldn't be a bloody contest.
It shouldn't be a bloody contest.
Fight and, of course, and
it should also not be a beauty contest.
Then it shouldn't be also a beauty contest either.
Swiss people, for example, can travel internationally with a cantonal passport, not even a national one. That's like us traveling on a Free State passport.